All right, we are live. Let me just do a couple quick edits here, real quick. Hold on 1 second. All right. All right, just do some quick edits and then we will get started. Give everybody a few minutes to come in the room. All right. All right. I think we are good. All right. Think we are good. All right, got all the edits done. Let me just run through a couple announcements before we begin. Yeah, I'm not going to try to be too long. I say that shit all the time. It never works, but try to stay on my time frame. Again, as I said, I just kind of pop on when I can. I don't really put it out there or time it. Sometimes it's too hard with everything going on. So I got some time I want to pop on again. So infernal blessings to everybody that's here right now. And we're just going to give it a minute or two, get a few more people in the room. But while we're waiting for that, let me just run through the announcements. So they will be on the recording as usual. A lot of the stuff I'm running through on the announcements, it's right there on the ticker on the bottom of the screen if you're tuned in live. Most important thing on the agenda at the moment, obviously, as we're getting closer, the 8th annual Journey of the Black Adept Conference. Believe it or not, July now has whipped by, right? We're approaching the last week of July. So we'll be in August in a little bit over a week. So the conference is rapidly approaching. We are in the final stages of getting the itinerary finished. We do have people that have signed up already. This is the earliest people have signed up. So it is open to sign up for. If you want to attend the conference real quick, it's a 4-day event. It's going to take place from October 30th to November 2nd, right here in Hollywood, Florida, which is basically the southernmost point of Fort Lauderdale before you get into Miami. Just throw some things out there. I know some people have sent some emails, asked questions. You have 3 airports in South Florida you can fly into, Fort Lauderdale being the most convenient because it is minutes away from the location of where we're doing all the activities. Miami is your second option, but Miami is a fucking hellhole, and the traffic going in and out of there is terrible. You could also fly on the West Palm Beach, or what's known as Palm Beach International Airport, but that's about maybe 35, 40 minutes away from the venue, which is not a big deal if you have a rental car. So you do have 3 options to look for flights, but I would look in that order. Fort Lauderdale being your first priority. because it's the closest minutes. You shouldn't have any problem finding a flight to Fort Lauderdale. It's a huge airport. Not too bad getting in and out. Traffic is really depending on the time of the day. So that's not horrible. You could have periods where it's a little bit congested. The easiest out of the three to get in and out of is definitely Palm Beach International Airport. It's easy. Miami's the worst out of all three. I'm just gonna give you the heads up on that. If you fly into Miami, you're gonna be dealing with some bullshit. I can tell you that right now. So Thursday night on the 30th, it's a meet and greet and an opening ritual. We start the conference with Friday and Saturday, same format, classes and workshops from 9 to 4 p.m. Then we come back in the evening time on both nights. On Friday and Saturday, we have a group ritual. Friday night, it's indoors. Saturday, we always do an outdoor ritual working, usually on the beach, the cemetery. We got some ideas we're floating around right now. And then we have a little get together afterwards on Friday and Saturday nights. We kind of go hang out. We usually go to a place called Flanagan's or All Stars, and we kind of just, hang out, listen to some music, kick it, eat some good food, socialize. That's when the spiritual stuff is over. And I always tell people when you come, when it's time to socialize and just kick it and have fun, please don't bring up all the spiritual stuff. All right. Part of it is understanding how to balance and harmonize. There's a time to chill and have fun, and then there's a time to be spiritual. Some motherfuckers want to be spiritual 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's quite annoying and nauseating. Okay. So when it's time to kick back, eat, and have fun, it's time to kick back, eat, and have fun. And then on Sunday from noon to 4 p.m., I'll finish the conference off with a question and answer session. It's pretty much an open forum. We cover any and everything, whatever questions people may have, anything about the conference that took place, etc. And that finalizes the event. So you can attend two ways. You can come in live in person, or you can attend virtually. The only thing virtually, you just don't get access to the Friday and Saturday night ritual. Just too much going on. I don't stream it, or I don't do it like we do on Patreon, where we do it privately. Got to be there for the rituals, but you can attend virtually and get access to all the classes and the workshops. So if you're interested in signing up, you can email me at khnum19@gmail.com and just specify what you want information on, to attend it virtually or to attend it live in person. All right, and I'll send you all the information. Also, if you're interested in a reading or a consultation, as you guys know, I put in every video, I offer various different types of readings, Clepothic demonic readings, Santa Muerte readings, Egyptian oracle readings, shadow work readings, deity readings to see what gods, goddesses, demons walk with you. Or maybe you're just interested in a spiritual consultation. If you are, shoot me an email. As you see, the emails on the bottom of the ticker there, khnum19@gmail.com. Please include your full weekly availability. Please do not email me and say, Baniti, I want to do a reading Wednesday at 3 o'clock. It doesn't work like that. I wish it did. I wish the schedule was that easy to do. You need to specify your whole availability on a weekly basis, and then also put the time zone you live in. And then we'll find a day and a time that works for both of us, all right? Don't forget to support the social media platforms, Primordial Chaos 9 on Instagram, Primordial Chaos, 2 words, on Facebook, primordialchaos.com 3 on TikTok. That's the best place to stay up to par, abreast on all the latest happenings, announcements, classes, events. That's pretty much where you want to stay abreast. Everything will be posted on the platforms, as well as right here on the YouTube in the community section on the YouTube page. I pretty much put all the same stuff there, or announcements, so you can stay abreast on any of those platforms. Make sure you subscribe, hit the like button. The more likes and the more subscriptions we get, it gets the algorithm flowing, because as I told you, YouTube be fucking with these algorithms. I know, as I've said before, a lot of people say they're subscribed to the page. Make sure you are. Make sure you hit the notification bell and hit all notifications. And I know people have done that too, and they're still not getting the notifications. That's just some fuckery. There's nothing I can do about that. Control it, because I'll get emails after I'm done going live later that night or in the morning. I didn't know you were live. I didn't get the notification. I don't know what to tell you on that. I wish I had an answer for that. I don't. That's something that's obviously going. It's with the internet, it's with YouTube. I mean, I got my thoughts on what it is, but I can't tell you exactly. That's beyond my control. So just double check that. Just make sure you have you're subscribed, the notification bell. Make sure when you hit that and you get that drop menu, make sure you got all notifications checked, just as a precaution. I know some of you do because you've told me. You said, "Me, I got it. I'm subscribed. I've got all notifications checked." Sometimes I don't get the notification you go live, and I get it. I wish I had an answer for you. Like I said, I got my thoughts. I'm pretty sure I know what it is, but that's something that they fuck with the algorithms, right? But if I was talking about nonsense and garbage and slander and gossip and sensationalism, just negative, low vibrational frequency shit, they'd get that algorithm out to everybody. Talking about celebrities and rumors and gossips, because that's the bullshit that they want to put out there, right? That's the stuff they want people to be locked into. All right. But anyway, all of what I just said is the ticker below. So we got a lot going on. As I told you, the summer months, summer solstice is a very, in my opinion, draining time of the year, energy-wise, not just the weather obviously being part of it, but because pretty much all over the country, it's a warm season. So there's a lot more people out and about. There's a lot more shit that goes on, a lot more energy. And that's kind of why I like the winter solstice, where it's more secluded type of powerful energy. In my opinion, actually, there's more power during the winter solstice, but that's a whole nother story. We'll talk about that as we get that later in the year. But the goal is, as we're coming down this home stretch now, and this is why I originally set up the conference going back now 8 years ago around this time, because the conference is done right at what they call Samhain Festival, or Halloween as we know it as, or the Devil's Sabbath as somebody referred to it as, because it's that fall equinox in the meat of it as you're getting ready to approach the season of stasis or stagnation. And it gets us ready for going into that real strong aspect of the dark season, so we can emerge, right, when that spring equinox comes, right? There's supposed to be that evolution, that change. So it's a powerful time. It's how we work what we call our cyclical or cycle time on the occult. It's how I've been teaching people to do it for years. That's why I say, real time is in cycles, right? There's no such thing as linear time. It's an illusion, right? Linear time, as I've said many times before, was a trap. It was created purposely to keep you in a state of indoctrination and illusion, right? And if they could put a beginning and an ending on something, that means they had the ability to control it, right? So when you understand that there's no beginning, there's no end, as taught in linear time, that's going to liberate and free your mind to a degree that they have no ability to control. And as I said before, part of that trap is thinking that everything your experience is are separate moments and fragments. In linear time, it is. It's how they presented it to you. But as I've said, when you understand everything is one continuous present moment, right? Doesn't mean there's stages. That doesn't mean that there's not stages of those moments, right? Not fragments that they're separated, but it goes in stages. But they want you to believe that it's separate when that process happens, and it's not, right? When you really understand that, it would take the significance off a lot of the bullshit that they try to enforce upon us. You would really understand really what is the magnitude of your existence. And as I've said before, what if it was just the blink of an eye? This whole, even if you live to 80, 90, 100 years old, right? You're gauging that by linear time, because by linear time standards, you go, wow, that's a real long time. But by understanding cyclical time, it's really not, right? What did it mean back in the day in the Bible when it said people lived to 400, 500, 600 years old, right? What did that mean? Did it literally mean they lived to 400, 500, 6 years old? Or did it mean their generations or their genealogy existed for that long, right? There was a strong genealogy that could be traced back. What did it mean in the Bible when it said that God selected Noah? Because it says in the Bible in Genesis that he was an upright, perfect man, perfect in his generations, right? what he's basically was saying, he was chosen according to that story to replenish the earth after the flood because he was perfect in his what? Generations, or his genes, or his genealogy, right? So apparently God, who so-called has created everything, is now differentiating between his creation and now singling out Noah as having better genes than something else he created. See, people don't look at it like that because they're not programmed. They're not programmed to look at it like that, right? They're programmed to look at the spookiness and all the bullshit, right? So, point being is, we deal with cyclical or cycle time because it also gives you a greater understanding about what we call the principle of continuity in existence, which really that's what Leviathan is, an understanding what the principle of Leviathan represents, right? Some people falsely connect it to an actual entity or deity, and it's not. Yes, there's a lot of symbols, the dragon, the sea creature, the serpent, the sea monster, all of that are symbolic aspects, right? If you understand the different representations and manifestation of what the dragon or that sea creature represents in the occult, right? We talked a little bit about it in the last YouTube live about the process of transformation and the awakening of that kundalini or serpent energy that lies dormant, within us. That's what they try to put to sleep. Because remember, that serpent energy stays coiled at the root of your spine or by your root chakra, waiting to be awakened. But the kundalini cannot be awakened, just like the pineal cannot be activated when you're fed artificial light. I just did a video a few days ago or the other day, right? And I'm going to reiterate a few of those things here. That's their biggest fear, that you awaken the true light within, right? And that's why I titled that video, What is True Light and What is True Darkness, right? And again, I'm just going to reiterate some key points from that real quick before I get into, well, it kind of ties into what we're going to get into. And as I've said many times before, they always promote the concept of darkness as something negative or evil or wicked or bad. And usually it's religious folks with a religious mindset. And as I've said many times before, well, darkness couldn't be bad according to their biblical God because their God exists in darkness. And he confirms it in the first chapter of Genesis, the first few verses, where it says God's spirit roamed across the void and the deep, right? And there's no light. The sun hasn't been created. So God is just hanging out, chilling in darkness, the void, the abyss, the deep. It clearly states that when you read the first three verses of the book of Genesis, right? And then he emerges from this darkness, right? And then we know what takes place and transpires after that, right? The point being is, well, darkness could not be an evil thing as they describe because their very God existed in darkness or nothingness. And as I said many times before, in order to have the something first or the sum of a thing, you need to have no thing or nothing first. That nothingness, which does not exist in the realm of person, place, or thing. When they talk about triple stage darkness, right, they never expounded on that in the degrees of the Nation of Islam or in the 5%, 120 to 5%, which almost is the same thing if you're familiar with the teachings. They talk about triple stage darkness, but they never break down what are those three stages of darkness, right? Well, God does exist in that triple stage darkness or that nothingness, right? So darkness could not be evil. Light, on the other hand, understanding what true light is, there's artificial light, there's blinding light. Many esoterical orders and spiritual dogmas have tried to teach this for years, whether it's in alchemy, masonry, or other esoterical orders, right? Now, there's a couple of things I touched on a couple of days ago. They're always enforcing in these religions, philosophies, come into the light, light and love, light, come into the light. Well, light is blinding, and artificial light is more damaging and more indoctrinating than anything. And that light I'm talking about is intellect or knowledge. See, the light they want you to come into is the false information and the false knowledge. As we know as Luciferians, illumination and light to us is intellect. So a person who is an illuminated one is trying to receive as much knowledge, wisdom, and understanding or intellect to become an illuminated one. For that crown, for that brow chakra, that third eye chakra to be open, that pineal to be open to receive what they call whole light consciousness, right? That's the goal, okay? And if you don't understand that, then you don't understand when they have these terms that they refer to as the light. Well, religion is always telling you to come into the blinding light, right? It's the same thing if you're a brother, you're a Mason or Eastern Star, and you've gone through your degrees on the Entered Apprentice degree in the Blue House, right? All your Masonic degrees, you're blindfolded. So you're seeing in the darkness with this eye, right? You're not seeing with these two physical eyes that create the illusion. And as I said before, if you've done any type of initiatic ritual like that where you've been blindfolded, at some point in that darkness and silence, what starts to happen is you start to adjust. Your higher senses kick in, which is the reason why I chose the title of this video, right? You start to sense things. You start seeing things, but not like with these two eyes. What's that sound? What's that movement? What's that smell? Like all your senses start to kick in. And after a while, you adapt to being, quote unquote, into that darkness. And the deep thing is, it's no different if you go into a dark room or you get up in the middle of the night and your bedroom is pitch black. Your pupils at some point adjust where light emerges from that darkness. The light shineth in the darkness, but the darkness comprehendeth it not. The light that shines in the darkness for us, for an esoterical aspect, is the knowledge. Right? I know they say that quote in the Gospel of John, the first chapter, the first few verses, that's referring to Jesus. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And there was a light, and the light that shined, light shined in the darkness comprehended, etc. I know they're going to tell you that that's Jesus, right? In religion, yes, to them, that's their interpretation of it. We know that's talking about something greater and deeper beyond that, right? It's trying to say one must go into the dark to do the work of the light. That famous alchemical statement you've heard from over many years period, right? It's no different when you're in a dark. See, they spooked you out about the dark to the very point when you were a small kid, the boogeyman, right? The boogeyman's in the dark, right? We always heard that as young kids, right? Some people are afraid to sleep in dark rooms to this day. So there's some adults who can't sleep without some form of light or the light on, or they got to have the TV on all night. That's somebody who has a very chaotic and disturbed soul. That's somebody who is not tapped into the very essence of who and what they are and the origin from whence they came. You never forget, as I said in that video the other day, you never forget that from whence you came. How do you know that? Because you always go back to your most fondest memory, no matter how old you get. You remember when you were in those dark, chaotic waters in the womb of your mother in the fetal position. We all do it. You sit on the couch or the recliner, or you're in the bed. And what's one of the comfortable positions you just gradually go into? You turn on your side and you go into a fetal position. We all do it. That's because you never forget from whence you came. That is the moment when you were at your most tranquil and peace, before you were birthed into the chaos. And once you emerge from the womb into this realm, you were blinded by the artificial light. It's no different when you go through the first degree of masonry. After going through those degrees in the darkness or in the womb of your mother, then the brethren that's going through the degrees are knelt down in front of the altar. There's a brother that stands behind each brother blindfolded, and they remove the blindfold. All the brethren clap, and they say, "Let there be light," and somebody cuts the lights on. And then you're reminded. And for a few moments, you're blinded, right? Your eyes got to adjust again because you got so comfortable being back home that now you were brought back into the chaos, okay? So now you're like, what the fuck? And now you got to readjust. That's to remind you that entered apprentice degree in Freemasonry is to remind you from whence you came and where you're at, and to understand the journey as you continue, if you continue your Masonic journey or your Masonic path, if that's what one chooses. Same thing with the Eastern Stars, the Order of the Eastern Stars for the female, right? So true light and darkness is not what people think it is, right? And I even brought this point up. And if light is so good, I brought this up. I said, what element is always referred to as being the key element that represents and is always present in what they call hell in religion? and that's fire, right? What is fire? Fire, it illuminates, it creates light, right? And what are they always telling you in religion? They're going against everything they tell you. They tell you to come into the light. Well, hell is fueled by the light, not the darkness. Because what do they tell you in Christianity? That you're going to burn in an eternal lake of fire. Hell is an eternal lake of fire that burns eternally, and you're going to burn forever. So hell is illuminated by light, okay? Where it goes against their very Bible, where their God is enshrouded in darkness. So why are they teaching you reverse? Ask yourself that question. Shouldn't they be teaching you about what that darkness represents? Because it clearly states in Genesis that that's where their God emerged. And if you say, well, that's evil and darkness is evil and you're wrong, then you're going to have to explain to me the 45th chapter of Isaiah. And it's clear as day. If you read, you could start with verse 1 and go down to, I believe, about verse 7 or verse 9, and you will see who's clearly speaking. It says, I am the Lord your God, right? I am the Lord your God. I create good. I create evil. I create the light. I create the darkness. I, the Lord God, do all these things. It's right there. He's taking responsibility for creating the light and the darkness and what we're labeling as good and evil. So what kind of God are we talking about here? Or the question I should be asking is, do religious people understand their God of the Bible? Do they really know what they're reading? So you can't say darkness is evil. That quote abolishes that right there, knocks it out the box. Okay? So shouldn't religious people be teaching their people, their followers of their religions, about what real spiritual darkness is? They should. But no, they keep coming to the light. Coming to the light, brother. Coming to the light, sister. You need to be saved, right? Love, light, and life. Everything is like this, like that. They are telling you right in front of your face that they are trying to blind you with false light and false illumination, okay? That's my point. That's what I'm trying to get you to see. To prove my point, I mentioned this too the other day. Go into a room, a dark room, go to the center of it. Make sure you're in the center of it. And make sure the room is completely dark. Sit in that room, and as you adjust to the darkness, you will start to feel that you are getting completely engulfed in the darkness, and you will feel a feeling of peace. What we're always talking about on the mundane surface of peace and tranquility, you will always, everything that we talk about, you will start to feel that, right? And you'll understand at that moment, you're at the center or the axis of your existence or your universe, where everything is evolving around you now, right? It's like what the Masons say in the Masonic Lodge, or what we say in the Masonic Lodge, right? You must stand firm on your square. People don't know what that really means, right? The square, as we know, represents the four corners, north, south, east, and west. Well, that's the basic breakdown of it. But that's why you might hear Masonic brothers go, you're standing on your square, brother. You know, you're at the center of your axis, right? When you're standing on the center of your axis, you are encased and engulfed in nothingness or darkness. You now are that representation of God. And this is why I said, when they talk about the omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient aspect of God, how can God be omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient if they're saying he's in a place called heaven? Now, if they're putting God inside of a place, that means heaven's bigger than God. That can't be the omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient God. So when you bring that up to religious folk, oh, no, see, brother, you don't know. I do understand. You said God is the omnipotent. He's omniscient and omnipresent. He's everywhere, every place, at every time. That's what they teach. Okay? But he can't be every place at every time if you're placing him in heaven. Because if you're saying he's in heaven, that means he's there, which is not here, right? And this is why, like I said, they got confused with what Jesus was teaching when you're reading the Gospel of John in the 10th chapter, right? When he said, when you see me, you see God. And the Pharisees said, blasphemy. He's saying he's God. And what was Jesus's response to that in John chapter 10, verse 34? I told you he was an occultist, man. You just don't understand his teachings. He's separate. Now, this is supposed to be the so-called savior to Judah, because remember, he came back for the lost sheep of the house of Israel, which was Judah, not all, the whole world. He came to save that lost remnant that was destroyed. That all, remember, God was angry with Israel. He removed them out of his sight. Second book of Kings, chapter 17, verses 17 to 19. It says they were all removed out of his sight except for Judah only. That lost sheep that took root upward later, that's who Christ came to. Clearly mentions it in Matthew 10. All you got to do is go look at it. Clearly, 15:24, it clearly says he came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel, Judah only. He didn't come to save the whole world. So now in John 10, verse 34, he's talking to these Pharisees, and they're going off on him because he's saying, when you see me, you see God. They thought when he was saying, when you see me, you see your spook sky daddy that you teach everybody and that you believe in. And notice he separated himself from them. And he's supposed to be of the same people. But he said, is it not written in your law? And he was obviously referring to Psalms chapter 82, when King David's talking to the congregation. And he says, all of you are God's children of the Most High. And in Genesis chapter 2, verse 7 says what? God breathed into man's nostrils the breath of life, and what? Man became a ruach, a living soul. So there's your omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient God, because he was saying the creator resides within all of us. So that's how God can be omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient at all times. That's what Christ was trying to say. When you see me, you see God. When I see you, I see God. When I see you, you see me, vice versa. So God, the manifestation of God, is everywhere. Okay, everywhere. So that's what he was trying to say. When you see me, you see God. But then, Christianity spooked it out with the Trinity, which you only find once in the Bible, in the first letter of John, chapter 5, verse 7, and that was added. If you go do your research, when these councils, like the Nicene Council, got together, they added that stuff so it could validate the bullshit that they were trying to feed the masses with. But again, when we get into that concept of light and darkness, people get totally thrown off. Okay, they get totally thrown off because they're coming from a religious mindset. Darkness cannot be bad or evil because the very biblical God existed in it before he said, let there be light. Clearly says in Genesis 1, his spirit roamed across the void and the deep, right? So the creation of the sun doesn't come till later. So from whence did God emerge? The darkness. And then people fuck up and they give him a name. That's the mortal bullshit right there. To show that people have no idea what they're talking about. Does anybody really know the name of God? Careful when you answer that. I know people are going to say stupid shit like Jehovah, Yahweh, Jah. You're going to say all modern day poor translations. Though none of those are names of God. Those are all titles that people try to give God because mortals and humans need that to make themselves feel comfortable. And the reason why I say that is simply this. If you are also in alignment with that belief from a religious perspective that your God is omnipotent and omnipresent and omniscient and present at all times, nobody could know the creator, the name of God, because God just is. Existence just is. Because if you did, here's what would happen. Real simple. And I've said this before. I said this, I think, in a video a couple of days ago. If I'm in a room, we're in a big room, we're at a gathering, or we're out somewhere, and I see somebody I know, and his name is Phil. And I look across the room, and I go, hey, Phil. And I yell Phil's name. Guess what's going to happen? Phil could be conversating with a few people in the group. He's going to hear his name called. Why? Because he hears that tone, that frequency of his name. And Phil's going to pause and stop. All his energy that was focused with that group of people, he's going to stop, turn to look, and see who's, oh, hey, Baniti. Now I got Phil's attention. Now, can you really know the name of God and still stand behind the principle that your God is omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient? No, because if you knew the name of God, you would command his attention at that moment, and creation and existence would cease to exist because you took all of God's attention off of everything he had to keep focusing on to stop and focus on you. That is foolishness, okay? That is complete foolishness. So when people say they're praying and call upon the name of God, what are they calling upon? They're using titles and attributes. Even people who claim to pray to Jesus, if you're using the name of Jesus, that's not the correct name either. It's the wrong tone. It's the wrong frequency. He never was called Jesus anywhere. If you go look up in the Hebrew, that's a Greek and Roman name that comes way after the fact. So why are people here in the West praying to Jesus, which was a Roman god? So was there a trick played there? Are they getting you to call upon the sweet name of the Roman god, Jesus or Jesus? Sounds very similar, okay? But you can't tell certain religious people this. Oh, no, that's not what it is. Don't tell me that's not what it is when you have no factual information to support what you're saying. First of all, there's no letter J in the Hebrew alphabet. That's kindergarten knowledge. Everybody knows that. So his name could not have been Jesus. So why are we still using that name, right? Everybody knows it's Yahshua in the Hebrew, right? So why are Christians still calling upon the name of Jesus? Okay. See, that's the mortal shit. The reason why you can't call upon the name of God is because you are God. Okay. You don't want to accept that because you've been spooked out to believe that there is some inferior entity that exists way out there somewhere, eons in outer space, way beyond your mind can comprehend, that one day you're going to go to this place called heaven and you're going to figure it out at that point. So that's what you're taught from day one. So you spend your whole life searching for something you're never going to find because they put it so far from you, when their Bible even tells them God doesn't dwell in houses made by man's hands. The temple of God, the kingdom of heaven resides with their man. So that kind of is contradictory to what religion does. They teach you to come to a house of worship made by man's hands to call upon some spook God that exists somewhere out there in the sky. Which one is it? Right? But they don't have no justification for this. Okay? They have no justification. But anyway, more on that. Go watch that video. But my point I was trying to get you to see, understand what true darkness and light is. Darkness is not an evil thing. It's only evil in the minds of the individuals who have been misinformed and indoctrinated through religious programming. That's why darkness is evil, right? It's the only time you receive peace. Think about it. Why is it you go to sleep in darkness, right? You're supposed to because you're supposed to go into a tranquil state. That's why I said people who got to have a light on, the TV on, you have a very, very chaotic soul. And you have not made order and you've not dealt with yourself. The reason why you're afraid to sleep in the darkness, because you're afraid of what you've been programmed with, all those fears, all those anxieties. And as I said before, I used to do an exercise years ago. We used to have a bookstore. I used to do these silent meditations in darkness, group meditations, and I would do it intentionally just to see how long certain people would last. And you can try this, get a group of people. And it's the most bugged out thing in the world. You're not doing anything. You're just getting in a quiet room, silence, darkness, and quietness. You will see no more than a couple of minutes in, people start moving, fidgeting around. This one's breathing changes. This one's clearing their throat every 2 seconds. This one can't get in a comfortable position. You know what's starting to happen in the darkness? See, all that illusionary aspect of yourself is starting to just be stripped away. And the real you is starting to emerge within, and you're starting to fear it. You were taught that was the boogeyman. It's no different than when you were a kid. You were a kid in a dark room, and then all of a sudden, as soon as you got in the darkness and the silence, you started to feel a presence, something in the room. You start to look on the back of your closet door. You have your jacket on it. You think it's a person. Your mind starts playing tricks on you. See, that's the real you emerging. The boogeyman that you were fearing was you. There was nothing in the room. It's just the real you was starting to emerge, because all the bullshit in that silence and darkness, when you're in tune with your real thoughts, the real you starts to emerge, right? But you want to suppress that. So you want to stay into the blinding light. You want to be falsely illuminated. You want to be indoctrinated with bad information. You want to worship and search for something that exists millions, billions, and eons outside of you somewhere in outer space. And, just be good, follow all the rules, follow all the regulations, do as you're told, because there's a great reward waiting for you later when you die. Well, let me ask you this question. And yeah, you can flip it right back around on me. What if you were to get to that point of death and there was no heaven? Then what? Yeah, you could turn around and say, a religious person could turn around and say to me or us and go, well, what if there was? But that's the whole point. What if there was, or what if there wasn't? You don't know. You're hoping and you're having faith. And the Bible also says faith without works is dead. So you just can't have blind faith. So that's something. First of all, how you dissect this, to show you I can prove that what they're teaching you of heaven doesn't even exist is real simple. Go look up the word heaven right now. It comes from the word haven. Do you know what a haven is? It's a dock. It's a place of hiding or enclosure. It's where ships dock, right? So they're tricking you. That's where they get the word from. You ever heard the term good ship Jesus? The good ship Jesus. Get on the good ship Jesus, because it's going to dock at a haven somewhere. A haven is a dock. That's where they get the word heaven from, right? It's nothing mystical or spooky about it. The word hell comes from the Greek word Hades, right? Meaning below, the underworld, right? And they can't even prove their concept of hell exists, right? And the Catholics even went, like I told you, a step further. They got a place called purgatory in between, which really is where we're at now here on earth. That's a whole nother story, okay? But I'm trying to show you how they fucked with your head. They took a lot of these ancient mythologies, these ancient concepts and stories, and they stamped it in their religion, and now they got you living in fear. If you follow all the rules and regulations, you'll get into the eternal kingdom of heaven. And meanwhile, when I read, whether it's the Quran or the Bible, there's nothing described in heaven that I can't get here on earth, which shows me mortal men wrote those stories. It talks about milk and honey, gold, green silk robes. You can look anything up. Find me one thing that's mentioned about heaven in the book of Revelations in the Bible or in the Quran that is not something earthly you can find here. So what are we talking about? Who wrote this? Okay, I can get milk and honey here. I can get gold here. I can get fine green silk robes here. Right? All the things that it promises, golden gates, all that stuff, there's nothing mentioned in there that's not of an earthly origin. Right? Which again is showing you individuals put these stories together to keep you controlled. And that's why men got together at these councils like of Nicaea and Trent, and they had to sit down and say, well, what goes along with our spook ideology? We got to be in alignment with what we're teaching so we can control the masses. And then they decided what books to keep in, what books to omit, what teachings are church teachings or not. Like I told you, first letter of John 5:7, where that's the only place in the entire New Testament that the Trinity is mentioned. It is not in the original manuscript. It's something that these councils added later. They had to, because the Trinitarian teaching comes from the Catholic Church, right? That's its origins, right? Even if you believe in it and you're not Catholic, you're believing in a Catholic principle, okay? And the Catholic Church was the first or the father of all Christianity here in the West. So anybody that is not a Catholic, whether you like it or not, you branched off into another sect and you have your own cult of Catholicism, whether you're calling it baptism, Baptist, Pentecostal, Jehovah's Witness, Seventh-day Adventist, you are a cult or a break-off branch of Catholicism, whether you want to accept that or not. That's facts. You may not like that if you're a Baptist. Oh, no, I'm a Baptist, I'm a Pentecostal. My next question would be, then why the fuck are you giving yourself any of those titles? Because Jesus didn't refer to himself as any of those things in the Bible. Show me where Jesus said he was a Pentecostal. Show me where Jesus referred to himself as a Baptist. Show me where Jesus referred to himself as a Seventh-day Adventist. I keep the Sabbath, so I'm going to call myself a Seventh-day. These are all men that started this shit, okay? These are men that made these things up. Because there's going to be a long-ass line in heaven. So what? Baptists get in this line. Jehovah's Witnesses, you get in this line. The Catholics, you come here. The Pentecost, it's all foolishness. And the word Christian was a mockery if you go into Acts 11:26. It was an insult when they referred to the disciples as Christians in Antioch in Syria. That was as a mockery, and it tells you the disciples were first called Christians in Antioch, Acts 11:26. And the word Christian comes from the Greek word Christos, which is where they get the word Christ, and it's also where the Hindus get the word Krishna, and their Krishna is like a Christos or a Christ concept. Somebody's fucking playing games with you, okay? So Jesus never referred to himself as Christ, okay? That's why he said in Matthew 24, beware of those coming in my name, what? Saying that I am Christ. See, people think that's referring to people coming saying that they are Christ. That's not what it says. Go back and read it. He's clearly saying, beware of people who come in my name saying that I am Christ, meaning him. Beware of people who come and say that he is Christ. People will say, no, that's not what it says. It's saying, beware of people who come saying that they are Christ. Go back and read it in the Hebrew. That's not what it's saying. You've been tricked, right? And people don't want to hear this. No, that's not what it's saying. Because I don't want to get into that Paul shit, but that's a whole nother story. But anyway, I can go on about this for hours. I don't want to get sidetracked, and I did. I got sidetracked for a good amount of time, 40-something minutes. I want to go through some of your magical senses. Let's shift gears because I don't want to. I'll get to your questions and comments as soon as I get through the material. But I want to get into understanding your spiritual and magical powers. right? And when you understand them, then you'll understand who and what God or the creator really is, because that power lies within you. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Because see, the fool will say, well, you're not God. See, because they're coming from the perspective that you're saying that as you're saying you're their spook spirit God, their sky daddy God. No, we're not saying that. Neither was Christ saying that in the Bible. And that they misunderstood him, and they'll misunderstand you when you say that. So when I'm saying things like you're a god and you're a goddess, I'm not talking about a spook god or goddess. I'm talking about a living, breathing, talking, thinking, intellectual God, right? That has the dual nature, just like the God of the Bible, has a agreeable and a disagreeable nature. So when you're calling God Yahweh, Yah and way means agreeable and disagreeable. So when you're calling God Yahweh, you're saying he has a good and bad aspect of his nature. Well, he confirmed that in Isaiah 45. You too are the same. And that's, again, God breathed into man and women the breath of life, and they became what? Living souls. So let's talk about it. All right. And again, I'm going to refer to, I always like to take little excerpts out of this book. I used it last time. It's a book I've brought to you guys' attention on and off over the last several years. This is the Draconian Ritual book. And if you haven't and you want to kind of follow along or want to research later, there's a section in here that ties into my title of my video. It's called Magical Senses, and it starts on page 152 for those that want to do further research. In the modern world, when life becomes fast and people are flooded by the rapid flow of information, many practitioners of the occult arts are drawn to the left-hand path, attracted by the promise of fast and concrete results. It's all bullshit. This is not a quick fix. Anybody that tells you, because there's a lot of bullshit on the internet, and I've never promoted it like that. People think they're going to come on the occult in the left-hand path and poof, their problem's going to go away. I'm going to do a few rituals, a few invocations, light a few candles, and boom, I'm this powerful magician now and I got no problems. That's all bullshit. Anybody that's telling you that, anybody that's teaching you that knows nothing about the occult, knows nothing about the left-hand path, and it's the complete opposite. Coming on this path is more responsibility. When you have the knowledge and you are now responsible to being upheld to a certain standard, not somebody else's standard, your own standard of greatness. Because if you don't, you have no excuse now. Because when you know, there's no excuse. See, those that don't know, they can have excuses. They can fuck up. They can do stupid shit. But once you're aware and you know, it becomes harder. Contrary to belief. I know there's a lot of bullshit out there on the internet, right? And social media platforms in it, it's really made this shit very cartoonish, right? And I've said from day one, this is work. Anybody that tells you this is not work, this is not study, this is not research, this is not applying yourself, the difference, like I said, of what we do, this is a way of life for us that are on this path. It's not a religion. It's not a part-time practice. It's not something we just do on the weekends. It's not just something we do when it's convenient. It's not just something we do when it's trendy and there's a group gathering. No, we live, eat, breathe, and sleep this. It's a way of life. It resonates through every aspect of our DNA, every aspect of our being. We're a living example of this information and knowledge. That's the difference. All right? So we're not those like them fake ass religious people that do dirt all week and then they, show up on Sunday to church, ask for forgiveness to get a clean slate just to go do it all again next week. Right? That's not us. We're not hypocrites. We're not cowards. Right? We own up to our shit. We take responsibility for our actions, good and bad. When we're successful, we take that, we take the credit for that. When we fail and fuck up and do stupid shit, guess what? We take the credit for that too. That's the difference. Okay? And if you don't have that mindset, then you cannot be on this path. So understand that. It is no such thing as a quick fix or fast results. Without bothering to learn the basics, they start with spirit evocations, happens all the time, and powerful rituals, hoping that these will quickly produce the desired effect. On the one hand, the magic of the left-hand path makes a lot of things possible in a short time. That's when you hear me always say, some people go, well, I came right on the path in the beginning and I did that. Yeah, you might get momentarily results. I will put any amount of money on it over a long period of time. It will not hold up. And that's what's being said here. So people come right on the path. They don't get the basics down. They don't do shadow work. They don't do demonic integration work. They don't connect with their bloodline ancestors. They don't get the arts of meditation down pat, the practice of invocation, the pronunciation of tones and frequencies. They just go right into a hardcore ritual thinking it's going to fix something right away. And 9 out of 10 times, the small percentage that might get some momentarily results, 9 out of 10 times it fucks people up and makes shit even 10 times worse than it was before. All right, let's continue. All right. Indeed, it is not uncommon to approach a particular ritual for the first time in your life and have powerful and spectacular results. So right out the gate, for the first, it's not uncommon. But usually the lack of basic skills is an obstacle rather than an advantage in your magical work. In the most fortunate case, you will be left disappointed that nothing happened. In the worst, the effect will be contrary to what you expected, or the ritual will manifest in a random and chaotic way. That's what I meant, where a lot of times it makes your life worse. It creates more chaos, more problems, more issues, because you didn't deal with understanding every aspect of yourself, good and bad. You might have psychological imbalancements you didn't address. You might have personal, emotional, and psychological traumas that you picked up along the way from, say, a small child that you've been harboring and carrying with to the present day as a grown adult, and you haven't addressed that in your shadow work or your spiritual work. So you just negate all that and you go work with a powerful deity like Lilith, who can make things more mentally chaotic for you. Or Kali, because you think you're going to get some great, quick, fast results from something. It doesn't work like that. 9 out of 10 times, it does not work like that. Okay. All right, let's continue. So it'll affect you in a chaotic way, and you will not be able to stop or control it. In the long run, you will not get far on the path without knowledge and understanding of the basic mechanisms behind your magical operations. This knowledge is that all magic is within you, and your quest for power is to awaken and activate your inner potential. Where's the power? Within you. Does it exist outside somewhere? Does it mean you have to go to a church, kneel down, look up to the sky, and pray to some external force to activate this power? Absolutely not. But that's what they teach you. They teach you there's this spooky, unseen God that's going to do it for you. And I know Christians say, well, I prayed, and I prayed earnestly, and my prayers were answered. You know why they were answered? Because your intent was so powerful. You put so much of your energy behind it. Yes, you can give that credit to some spook God, but really, at the end of the day, if you prayed your ass off, it was you that manifested it in the long run. You can give credit to some spook God, but at the end of the day, you had such a firm personal belief. You thought it was from a spook God, but you drew that power from within, and whatever your desired results you so earnestly were praying for and needed, it manifests. But really, at the end of the day, it came from within. It didn't come from without, right? So it's not going to come from without. And as I said, this is an inward journey out, not an outward journey in. If you're on the path to self-mastery, you start from within. It starts with self. When you come on a path of illumination like this, we're not teaching you to look outside of yourself. Well, okay. So you see out there, brother, in the heavens, the Most High God, whatever you want to refer to him as, El Aliyun Aliyun El, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, El Elo, Yahweh, Jehovah. See, the Lord works in mysterious ways. He's out there, brother. See, that's the bullshit they start with you as a very young child. Most of us here in the West were raised with that mindset because our parents were, and our grandparents were, and our great-grandparents were, and our great-great-grandparents were, etc. So it's not their fault. They were just doing the same shit that was done to them. But how you break that spell is now when you pass this information on, whether it's to your biological kids or to the next genealogy or generation of kids, you teach them the right way, and that breaks the cycle, right? That's how people don't understand. Well, how does change come? People always try to make it like it's something spook, like they think like there's going to be some great cataclysmic event that's going to bring the change. No, the change starts with you. Okay, I told you guys. I think I mentioned it in the last video, last live. I believe I did. I say everybody talks about the ancient ones returning. The ancient ones are here. They've been returning through the birth of your children. You can look at the children and see who they are. It's not complicated. You can see also some of these kids are demons born in the flesh. You can see that too. Demons that are not here for a good purpose, not the daemons or the demons that we talk about. They're here to cause disruption and chaos. That's the war. When it says that these demons, these gods, these Nephilims, these giants, these demons manifested on the earth plane, There was a war that took place there. There's a war that's taking place here. That's a continuation of that war. Look at some of these children. You can see who they are. It's real easy. Okay. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Some of you may not. So stop thinking you're looking for some big cataclysmic, tumultuous event to take place. The war has begun. It's been going on now for years. Okay. Everybody always talks about the Piscean era ending and the age of Aquarius opening. Well, that's when this war began. That was the era, those 70s, 80s. That was the era where a lot of these kids, we were birthed here to give birth to those kids. So those people who were born in the 70s and early 80s, your job is, this is not about you. I keep telling you this. You think it's about you, but it's not. Your job was to come here to be the vessel to give birth for the return of the ancient ones that were here a long time ago. These gods and goddesses that you read about in all these ancient texts and these mythological stories and scriptures and all these things you read, they're here. Some of you have given birth to them and you don't even know. And some of you, think about this. The ones I said that are not here for good reasons, those are the ones where you look at some of your kids and go, I don't know whose kid that is, right? You look at them and you go, they're not, that's not my side of the family. You think it's your husband and your husband goes, that's not my side of the family. It must be your side. That's because that kid is not here for good reasons. Some kids are just bad. They're just some rotten, badass kids. Some kids are just badass kids. No matter what you do, they're here to cause confusion. So that war that took place there, that was the beginning. Because what did it say? It said that those fallen angels, Lucifer was cast down, right? But as I told you, his descent was your ascension. See, they'd make it look like the casting down was something bad. No, that was just the first stage of that battle, right? The second phase of that war has begun and it's been going on. But people are asleep because they're worried about Donald Trump. And they're worried about what's going on in the news. And they're worried about Ukraine and Russia and Gaza and Israel. They got you distracted with everything but what you should be focused on. Pay attention. I told you guys this was going to be a strong year of death. 4 prominent people passed away in the last 4 days. 4 prominent people in the month of July, the month of Set, the year of 9, 2025. We lost Malcolm Jamal Warner a couple of days ago to a quote unquote drowning incident. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but go look at his last speech. He just spoke in Minnesota. I believe it was at the University of Minnesota. Right before this happened, go listen to what he was talking about in that speech. And then you tell me, is it a coincidence after what Malcolm Jamal Warner was talking about in that speech that this all of a sudden happens shortly after that? Go pull it up. I'm not even going to tell you, go pull up what he was talking about in that speech. Okay? Then a couple days later, 2 days later, we lose Ozzy Osbourne. He's gone, right? And we know the impact Ozzy had. I mean, whether you understood him or not, right? Ozzy was a showmanship. He was a magician. All that stuff he did on the stage. And, you know, the big thing during the 80s metal band era, and even like with Motley Crue, and even like what Kiss said, even though they came on the scene in the 70s, but they were very, you know, popular in the 80s, right? All of that satanic stuff was used. And Gene Simmons said it in an interview. They never ever once said that Kiss stood for Knights in the Service of Satan. Somebody made that up and they ran with it. And they said, man, that'll give us great media coverage. And then they added all those elements, right? It was psychodrama at its finest. Ozzy was the same thing, you know, pulling a bat's head off on stage and drinking the blood. Come on. It was genius, but you didn't understand it. Ozzy's gone. Today we lose Hulk Hogan, right? So Hulk killed his legacy because some of his racism side came out, right, with his daughter. But the reality is Hulk was an icon, right? I don't agree with that shit he said. It kind of killed his legacy. It kind of disappointed some of his fans. But Hulk Hogan made wrestling what wrestling is today. If you're my age, my era, and why a lot of these passings passed on, because if you're my age, we grew up with these. Like literally Malcolm Jamal Warner is the same age as me. He's 54. I'm 54. If you watch The Cosby Show growing up, it's like you were growing up with him. And I'm not going to lie to you. I shed a tear when I sat down and when I was looking at some of the tributes to him, because it hit home. It's different because it's like a part of you died, literally, because it's a part of your childhood, your upbringing, your existence. Same thing with Ozzy, right? And then the same thing with Hulk Hogan. That's one of the reasons why as a little kid, I was a huge wrestling fan. Right? He took wrestling. I mean, in the early 80s, when pro wrestling really started to become big, it was because of Hulk Hogan, whether you like him or not. And I think it was Chuck Mangione passed today. That happened today. I think Raven sent me that. Yeah, Chuck Mangione today. We also lose him, famous musician. 4 prominent people in a 5-day period taken. And all of them, I mean, besides Hulk Hogan, he had some health issues. A lot of people are saying it was attributed to this neck surgery that he recently had, and it was causing issues with his voice box and his throat and his breathing. So we'll probably find out it had something to do with that. The Malcolm Jamal Warner death is a little suspicious to me. Don't know the full story with Ozzy, but I know he was, rumor is that he knew he was on his way out and they just kept it low key. Chuck, I don't know what happened with him. But 4 prominent people in less than a week period. Okay. I'm trying to tell you people, and I told you guys earlier, beginning of the year, throughout the year, the end of the year class, going into this year's class, the new year class we do, I told you they're going to come for impactful people. And be alert, be aware. And sometimes you could be an impactful person and don't even know it. So some of them couldn't put up that psychic self-defense and prepare and protect themselves. And some of the aforementioned were in that category, but we can. Right? I told you all the stuff you feeling, the attacks, you guys feel it. Allergies through the roof, all these different sinus infections you get. They always try to attack the respiratory system, your breathing. You know, all these things, the way they can get at you. Low vibrational frequencies creating headaches, migraines, dizziness, imbalancement, extreme bouts of nausea. They have ways of getting these low frequencies to your brain, to vital organs of your body, because that's the new age of warfare or attack. And they're doing it. Don't think they're not. You can say, Baniti, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. I do know what I'm talking about, because they've tried multiple times to get me, attack me. I'm just going to be honest with you. Some of you guys have experienced it. If you're not, the buzzing in the ear, right? Just crazy shit, right? And they're going to try. And if you think it's a game, then don't believe it. If you think it's a fairy tale and a myth, don't believe it. Just go about your business, right? See how far that sitting in the church every week is going to get you. See how far believing in some spook when shit hits the fan, and then you start to come to the realization there is no spook. God, I better get off my ass and do something for myself. When that moment hits, you're going to regret it. So do something now. Do something now. All right. Let's continue. And I'm not going to read all. I'm just going to highlight what the senses are and just kind of give a little breakdown. I'm not going to read everything in its entirety. You could read that for yourself. But this is good here, because what we're going through here, this is how you activate these magical powers or spiritual abilities, understanding all of this stuff. And if you don't, you will not be successful. Trust me when I tell you. All right. All right. All right. In the long run, you will not get far on the path without knowledge and understanding of the basic mechanisms behind your magical operations. This knowledge is that all magic is within you, and your quest for power is to awaken and activate your inner potential. Whether you work with the draconian path or any other magical system, the quest begins with activating and developing your magical senses. It is not possible to succeed in such practices as astral travel, spirit evocation, path workings, and controlled meditation, scrying, divination, or in other words, more advanced forms of magic without learning how to see, hear, sense, taste, and smell that, which is inaccessible to our physical senses. This is what we call visualization or clear seeing, okay? Magic or psychic senses are the equivalents of 5 physical senses, and we're going to run through them. They are called clairsenses, the name being derived from the French word clair, meaning clear. So clear senses in English, same shit. This corresponds to the draconian principle of clear seeing and the etymology of the word dragon from Greek drakon, to see clearly. Okay? So now you see why we see people think when we say it's the path of the dragon or the draconian. What's up, man? Okay. The path of the dragon, you're thinking the monster dragon. No, we're saying the clear path. Most of you don't even know that. And don't say you did, because most of you just didn't know that. You're caught up in just the symbolicism of the dragon. And yeah, it's cool and everything. I like dragons and all that shit. So when you say you're on the draconian path, or the path of the dragon, or you're awakening the dragon within, you're awakening the clear path within. Okay? And I know most of you don't lie. You didn't know that, right? You're going to say the dragon. First thing we hear draconian or the dragon, you think and see a literal dragon. And that's why I keep saying people don't know what this path is about. Oh, that's devil stuff and the dragon and so, well, that's some evil stuff. Stop. What's evil is worshiping a God that enjoys the smell of burning carcasses, and the aroma is pleasing to him as his blood is spilled to the four corners of the altar, and he enjoys the burning flesh of animals. That's what the biblical God clearly describes multiple times in Leviticus. Every time an animal was sacrificed, blood had to be dripped on the four corners, north, south, east, and west. And I told you, watch an old school Catholic priest. They reenact that at the Catholic Mass. When they do the aspect of transubstantiation, turn the bread and wine into the body and blood of Christ. They're visually preparing you for cannibalism to eat a dead guy. But you don't look at it like that because you're spooked out. No, you are participating in a magic ritual that is convincing you that you're drinking the blood and eating the body of a dead guy. I don't care what you say, okay? And the priest, he reenacts that old Levitical practice of sacrificing the blood and spilling the blood on all four corners of the altar. Because when he takes the bread and the wine, watch him. He'll go like this real quick. An old school priest. Some of the new priests don't do it. They go back, forward, left, right. They do it real quick. You got to watch. He bows his head. He goes like this, real fast. You can't even see it. He does it with the bread. He does it with the communion wafer. And he does it with the wine. Because that's supposed to represent the blood and the body of Christ. The sacrifice, they're reenacting the Levitical priest. That was the sacrifice that was done upon the altar. But now they say under the new covenant and the New Testament, Jesus was that great sacrifice. So it went from animal sacrifice to human sacrifice. You see the fuckery that they're trying to psychologically get you to engage in? You can say, no, but it's just spiritual. No, but that's how magic works. Every time you partake in that stuff, you're giving power to that energy. You're creating an egregore or a current, and that's what keeps these religions powerful and going, because you keep feeding that current with your energy, with your life force. And that's why they need attendance at the churches. So the more people that attend, the more energy they can feed off of, the more powerful they become. Okay? It's that simple. That's just fact. You may not like that. And then what do they do when you come up and receive communion in the air? The body of Christ. They put it. The blood of Christ. You just ate the body and blood of a dead guy in a ritual mental. Now they use this fancy word. No, see, it's called transubstantiation. It's the act of spiritually turning the bread and the wine into the body and blood of Christ. So that's magic. That's not sorcery. So when we're doing rituals on this, if that's not magic and sorcery, don't sit here and get pissed when you see people like us on the occult and the left-hand path doing magic and sorcery and call it devilishment. That's magic and sorcery you're doing when you're doing that in mass and church. So if you don't like that and it gets you mad because you don't want to hear the truth, so be it. Don't care. Okay? I'm going to call it for what it is. And don't criticize people who are in African traditional religions that use the spiritual practice of animal sacrifice. Oh, man. In Ifa and Palo, they kill all types of animals and they use the blood. A religious person is the last person to be judging a person for doing that. Well, your God of the Bible, my God, he loved dead animal flesh and blood. Right? So let's not talk about animal sacrifice. Let's not point fingers. Because when the finger that's pointing at you is going to turn right back around and be pointing at your ass. Okay? So be careful. So yes, the word dragon means, or dracon from the Greek means clearly. So the draconian or the path of the dragon is the clear path. Okay? The clear path. So that's why I tell people, I'm on the path of the dragon. So next time now, if you're a person who has a lot of, dragon images or symbolicism, when you look at those images now, focus on the representation of the clear path. All right. And to see clearly, awakened and activated by the serpent/dragon force, the Kundalini, these psychic senses replace the physical, thus developing and empowering the subtle body of the draconian initiate. For this reason, in our work, we call them dragon senses. And really, it's not just exclusive to the draconian path. These are across the board used in spiritual paths in general. All right. So we'll go through these, and we'll there's some exercise. We're not going to go through all that. I'm just going to go through some of them. But when you awaken and develop your dragon senses, you will not only learn how to experience the unseen, but also how to attune yourself to the energies of the draconian current or the clear path, and to find and open gates in the night side through which spirits will come forth at your calling. That's why I said knowing how to work with your spiritual and magical powers. The first one, clairvoyance, right? Clairvoyance is the psychic equivalent of sight or vision. It attunes the inner sight to extrasensory vibrations of energy, making it possible to see without the aid of physical eyes. The ability is experienced through impressions beyond the limitations of mundane perception, remote seeing, visions of the past, present, and future, and interaction with beings that exist on other planes and in different dimensions. It is a magical practice, visual experience. It is often accompanied by impressions received through other senses as well. And even if you focus on the inner sight only, it is not uncommon to receive the full picture with sounds, smells, and tastes. While practicing clairvoyance, it is also possible to feel the vibrations in your third eye. And sometimes this may involve intense physical sensations such as heat, cold, or even pain. These are all normal parts of the process, although if the pain intensifies with each practice, you should pay attention to your Ajna chakra and do additional exercises to balance the flow of energy through this power center. Clairvoyance is one of the most powerful senses that connects you to your spiritual power beyond the third dimension, right? And as everything that it describes in here, and one of the main things that activates that, when you use the understanding of spiritual alchemy, of making yourself less dense and speeding up your vibrational frequencies, and that's why mantras or anything that can speed up or put those vibrational frequencies in attunement with your personal alignment, this is how one is able to activate the power of clairvoyance, because it is a power that goes beyond this three-dimensional realm, right? It gives you insight to, as I said, everything in there, same visions, dreams, lucid dreaming, astral travel, all of those things, right? That's why it's listed more than likely here as the first one, right? It's very, very, very important aspect to understand, and it's killed when you're indoctrinated with faith and belief. When you just have, you put your trust in pure blind faith and belief, you disconnect yourself from your spiritual powers. When you surrender your divinity to something outside of yourself, you surrender all of these powers I'm about to go through. And they know that. So their goal is to get you to surrender your power so they can control you. So now your focus isn't to look within and activate your godlike power that has been there from day one. You are now submitting yourself to some spook sky daddy in the sky that doesn't exist. And they keep enforcing this illusion on you from day to day, week to week, from church session to church session, and you just stay stuck in it, right? Now, I'm not even going to have to read this one. Meditation. I'm just going to briefly touch on it. Meditation should be part of your regular practice, period. And I always teach that meditation is the art of listening for the voices of the spirits, as opposed to, it's the art of listening, not the art of talking. See, prayer is the art of talking, and you can't receive no visions or no messages because you're constantly talking. You're catching, praise God, hallelujah, yelling, hooting, and hollering. Prayer is the art of talking. Meditation is the art of listening. Listening for what? Listening for that inner voice. Getting yourself attuned with your soul, your spirit, your body, your mind. Meditation can release stress, anxiety. It can activate some of these other powers I'm going to go through, including clairvoyance. Meditation it's one of the arts that we use in all of our rituals. We should be using it on a regular basis. And let me also tell you too, the power of meditation. Some people think in order to get the powerful benefits of meditation, you got to sit in some long hour to 2-3 hour meditation. No, not true. If you master the art of meditation, a 5, 10, 15 minute meditation could be just as powerful as an hour or two meditation if done right. Now, the science to obtaining true meditation is mastering the art of concentration. And I've told you guys this over the years, okay? You can't obtain a state of meditation if you haven't mastered the art of concentration. So how do you do that? Real simple. Some people think they're in a state of meditation, but really it's in a state of contemplative thought, which is good too, but it's not meditation. So how do you know you're in the actual state of meditation? Well, you're in the actual state of meditation when you're not focused on the I. The I ceases to exist. You're encased in the moment. You're not really trapped in the physical shell or the body. Not so much in the sense of what we know as astral travel, where you're having an OBE, out-of-body experience, but you're not focused on the I, the mundane self. You have merged into, if you want to say it, your soul, spirit, or into the spirit realm. You're not focused on the I anymore, the physical, right? And it's the best way I can put it in words. It's not really something you can describe fully in words because you have to experience it. But in order to get there, because some people always, one of the biggest gripes they always say is, man, I have a hard time meditating. I can't focus. I can't concentrate. I get distracted. Well, that could be for a bunch of different reasons. It could be your diet. If your diet is terrible and you're eating a lot of food that's affecting your concentration, that'll affect it. Stress, anxiety, problems. You know, if your mundane life is chaotic, you're dealing with a lot of money, personal problems, relationship problems, career bit, all of those things can create a lack of concentration. It could also be a subconscious blockage of something psychological. Your shadow work usually attunes you into that. But concentration must be obtained first, right? So I always gave you guys exercises going years back. You could do this with one candle. You could just simply take a candle and gaze upon the candle, you know, do some decompression breathing before, relax yourself, get the blood and oxygen flowing, clear your mind to the best of your ability, and then stare at the lit candle. Stare at it for a while, capture its image in your mind, and then close your eyes and still see the candle burning for as long as you can. Keep doing it and build it up for long periods of time. The longer you keep doing it, the longer you are strengthening your power of concentration. So you might do it the first time, capture the image of the candle burning, close it. Maybe you get it for 5-10 minutes, then you struggle, it goes away. Keep doing it, you'll see it'll go up to 15, 30 minutes, etc. You will see that will train the mind to focus and concentrate when you're struggling. So the reason why a lot of people, for the most part, outside some of the aforementioned things I just mentioned a minute ago, they struggle with meditation is because they haven't mastered the art of concentration first, right? Meditation is a very important tool on our path. We use it daily. We use it regularly. We use it in our rituals all the time, all right? So that kind of speaks for itself. Let's look at the next one, clairscent. Clairscent is the psychic equivalent of the psychic sense of smell. In magical work, this is the ability to perceive odors or fragrances that are either not in the practitioner's surrounding or transmitted through other planes and dimensions. Each entity or a place or realm manifests not only with visual imagery or sounds, but also often with a characteristic smell. And this is so true. I'm going to talk about this in a second. These smells are usually beyond the borders of normal perception, and only a small portion of them is received through the physical nose. Psychic perception is not limited to the physical organs. Therefore, the scope of senses used in a magical experience is taken beyond all these limitations. Again, the practice is often accompanied by physical sensations. These are usually difficulties with breathing, after which the inner sense of smell becomes attuned to the odors and fragrances of the other side. I'm going to talk about, this is crazy. I'm going to talk about something on this in a sec. Either rapidly or in a slow, entrancing way. At first, these smells will be mundane and familiar, including flowers, herbs, forests, ocean, the smells of the neighborhood, and so on. They will come from other planes. and materialize through your inner senses, exposing you to the multitude of smells in the entire universe, revealing that everything has a smell, even your ass when you don't wash it. Odd and different, odd and different than experience with the physical sense, sharp and clear in many unusual ways. This experience will be intensified if you work with shape shifting and assume the form of a dragon, snake, werewolf, or another draconian beast. The human sense of smell will then be transformed into an atavistic, bestial consciousness. Let me explain something on this. It's crazy. All right. One thing, it's been a gift and a curse. Outside of the ability, like things up close as I've gotten older, I have, I guess, what they call that, farsight. We can only see things up, you struggle to see things up close. The only problem I have seeing is I have to wear things when I'm reading. I can see it, but it's not clear. My eye doctor told me as you get older, really what it is, it's just your ocular starts to just regress, because in this age of computers and reading and being on and doing, he said the muscles around the eyes start to get weak. And usually people who have, and I have 20/20 vision, far away at night, I can see things impeccable. Your eye charts, I can read it impeccable. It's just up close. And a lot of us who do work with computers or are reading all the time, it's usually why you have that problem. Now, some people have eye problems, eye diseases. That's different. But that, and coupled, I've always been blessed, and it's a blessing and a curse, with a strong, keen sense of smell, always. And my wife, she laughs at me all the time. When somebody's breath is banging, I be telling her, you don't smell that shit? She go, no, I could be out and about. It's this, believe me, it's not like I'm looking for it. But I don't even need to be that close to somebody. When the shit is kicking, the shit is kicking. Right? And it's just something that's the curse part of it. The blessing part of it, from a spiritual perspective, yeah, when somebody's breath banging, that shit is banging. And I can't stand when somebody gets up on me and talks. And I always tell people, you are not offending me and hurting my feelings. If I ever got stank breath and I don't know it, just pull me aside politely. Baniti, your shit is banging. Go get a piece of gum, some Tic-Tacs, go gargle, go brush your damn teeth. You're not offending me. All right? You are not offending me. What you are offending me is if you let me continue not knowing my shit is stank and I'm hurting people's feelings. So, yeah, me and stank breath, we don't get along too well. But the upside is what it's describing here. It is so true. I keep telling people are always looking for messages and communications from the spirits. I don't ever get any messages from the spirit. The demons don't communicate to me. The gods and the goddesses, they don't talk to me. I never get anything, blah, 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 boo, hoo, hoo. You know why? Because until you stop trying so bad to want a message, that's when you're going to get the message. I know that sounds crazy, but let me say it again. When you stop going into a ritual trying to dictate how you want to receive the message, that's when you'll get the message. Because 90% of the time, it doesn't come like you think it is, like you see in the movies and on the internet and TV, some figure looking the way you want it to look. My son, my child, my daughter, I have a divine message for you. You are the chosen. A lot of you, that's what you guys, a lot of you believe in your mind. I'm not saying all of you, but let's keep it 100% here. That's what you motherfuckers think. I'm just going to be real with you. What you do when you do that, and it creates problems, you shut down all your other spiritual senses and faculties, like this one, the spiritual power of smell. And I can't tell you how many times in a ritual, in certain incense and fragrances, I attribute to certain spirits. Literally, even when I talk about the spirit, I could smell a certain fragrance when it's associated with it. Real talk. And it's gotten to the point where I use specific type of incense for particular rituals for a reason. And here's the crazy thing. I could just be meditating on a spirit. I don't have any incense burning. Sometimes I'm just randomly out and about and I just smell something in the air. We've all probably experienced this. I said, man, that smells like that incense that I use for that ritual. Where the fuck is that coming from? I'm outside. I've experienced this being up north, back home in New York in the cold in the middle of winter. I'm out. I'm talking about, I'm giving you that setting because to show you I'm just in the middle of nowhere, nothingness going on. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it hits me. I said, holy shit, that smelled like that ritual that I did with Samael. Where the fuck is that smell coming from? That shit is crazy. Not in a bad way. I'm like, what this says here, because you have aligned your spiritual power, not just with this realm here, you've stamped your spiritual energy, you've connected it to their realm too. And you best believe the shit that you're doing here, they have the ability to tap into the smell here to show you that thin veil. And I've always said the power of smell is a powerful spiritual sense. That's the spirits communicating to you. Don't shut down your sense of smell, touch, feel. I'm going to go through all of them because we're always looking for a vision. It doesn't always come in a vision, people. Stop always looking to see something. So when you stop going into rituals trying to see something, that's when you're going to get a message. I know it sounds crazy, but that's when you'll get the message. Okay? I mean, that happens randomly. Look, this happens a lot to me. Matter of fact, it happened the other day. I'm in my office at work, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm doing my thing. And like I say, I have a small company that I work for. I pretty much run everything. It's not a big group of people, so I'm there a lot. So I have the whole space, and I'm just sitting there. And then out of nowhere, I'm smelling this smell that's attributed to Santa Muerte. And I'm like, holy shit, I don't got no incense burning. I ain't got nothing, this, that, and the third. But I'm keenly tapping into this very scent or odor that I'm very familiar with. Okay? So this is real. That's your highest, it's a reminder the spirits are letting you know you are connected to the etheric world. You're connected to their realm, and they're connected to your realm. You just don't think you are, right? But then there's that other strong smell. Like I say, some of you need to wash your damn ass, right? We can sense that smell too. We know when you need to wash your ass. We know when you need to put on some motherfucking deodorant because them armpits is kicking like Bruce Lee, smelling like you got an onion in a headlock. Put on some goddamn deodorant and wash your ass. Too much goddamn soap on this planet for some people to be smelling the way they smell. Okay, and don't give me this over. Man, I run into some of you cats who say you're all natural. I'm all natural. Your all natural stink, okay? Some of that natural soap, toothpaste, and deodorant, I don't know what's in that shit, but it must be stank because it makes your breath stink more, makes your armpits. I told you years ago I had a problem with a brother who was all natural. I had to tell him to get his all natural ass out the temple because he was offending people. He smelled that bad. Then find something that has naturally made that smells that's going to take away the goddamn stink. No, I'm just going to keep it real because people will come to spiritual gatherings and fuck up everybody else's moment and come stink. That is so disrespectful and rude. And then how the hell you know you some people smell so bad. How the fuck you know you don't smell like that? That's the question I want to know. Like when your armpits is like I had one, like I told you, I had one dude, his armpits were so bad, it was like onions making you cry. How do you not know you smell like that? That's all I want to know. Like, did you not do the check? I know when I put it on deodorant, I do the check, right? Do the check. How do you not know you smell like that? That's all I want to know. Just don't come to a gathering. And that's why, like, we're very selective now moving forward the last few years, because look, when people come, I tell them even when they come for the conference, come to the rituals in your best hygiene, because we could have anywhere from 15 to 30 people at them rituals. And it's not fair to somebody else, because I'm just going to keep it real. I know it's funny, and it is. I like to make fun of it, but the reality is, somebody's coming for a spiritual experience, and then your stank ass comes smelling like fucking ass, toes, and feet, and now the person's concentration is thrown off. All they getting distracted with is your funky ass, because you're wearing dirty socks and your feet smell like fucking Doritos, because you just don't clean yourself. That shit it's just, look, that old saying that our parents told us, cleanliness is next to godliness. I'm in 100% agreement with that. Okay, and I got a little OCD with that, not in a bad way. Not OCD where it's so compulsive and it's disruptive. Call me a neat freak or a clean freak, but teeth, like I'm a fanatic with my teeth. Like I keep records of tracks and not missing flossing. I don't care if it's 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, I fell asleep. I'm flossing and brushing my teeth before I get into bed. It's just like a ritual. I make sure I do it when I get up in the morning, and sometimes it's depending what I eat throughout the day. There might be a brush in between. I haven't missed a teeth cleaning in I don't know how many years. I'm saying literally, I'm 54. I probably haven't missed a teeth cleaning since my 20s. I know that sounds crazy, But look, that hygiene is important, especially when you're part of group settings. I don't want to smell your funky ass. If we're doing a group meditation, a group ritual, the last thing I want is somebody funky ass ruining it for everybody else. Okay? It's not fair. So hygiene is important. The sense of smell can be a very powerful thing and a very disruptive thing. And that's why I'm bringing that point up. So something else to factor in. All right, let's go to the next one. What they call clairgustance or clairgustance corresponds to the physical sense of taste. This is another powerful one. Some people describe doing rituals the taste of metal or blood, right? We're going to talk about that in a second. Or gustation. It is the ability to perceive the essence of spiritual and ethereal substances through taste. And sometimes when the spirits, you feel the energy of the spirits, the gods and the goddesses present in your ritual, they have a certain scent. This happens a lot, right? This happens a lot. The psychic ability is not given as much attention as the others, but it is properly developed. When properly developed, it opens the practitioner's mind to the wonderful synthesia of senses in which the visual and auditory perceptions are combined with a wide range of taste and flavors. The practice is also more difficult than others as the sense of taste is rarely explored through the ritual work, and many practitioners do not pay attention to the psychic ability. Again, it is at first accompanied by physical sensations, and you may experience difficulties with breathing, choking, or even an urge to vomit. If this happens, stay calm and breathe in a steady rhythm until the energies become balanced. Again, the practice involves the vision of transformation into a dragon, which also releases animal instincts and awakens the bestial consciousness. If you manage to awaken the sense of taste and fully enjoy the experience, you'll be able to taste all things in the universe, air, wind, various objects, and living beings. Tasting the energies of other people is often an intense, unusual experience as it opens the access to a lot of things, especially sexual tastes. This is going to sound crazy. I want to make sure I word this correctly. And I can only speak as a man. I can't speak as a woman performing oral sex. Some women will have a certain taste to them when you are performing oral sex on them that can be intoxicating. It could create euphoria. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Some of you may not. Everything that's being described here with this power, be careful, because outside of the pleasant things, there's also the very things that will make you feel sick. Sometimes when you're doing rituals with death current, you tap into the stench of death, right? When you're doing a ritual that might be associated with a certain aspect of death. So this one is a little bit different from some of the higher senses. It can be very invigorating and uplifting. It can be tied into the scent of a certain spirit, because I know they do carry scents when they arrive, and then you start to identify them. And here's a crazy thing. Sometimes the vibration and frequency can activate, I know it's going to sound crazy, activate the sense, the higher sense of smell. Because each one of them, there's a connection there that you have to learn to experience. But the one shared through sexual energy is crazy. And there's just some woman, they, like you said, when not the old stupid chicken head woman that thinks she's got the best punani in the world. There are some that got that fire because there's certain spiritual energy to it. I mean, you could taste their sexual juices has a certain power to it, and some people can feed off of that, right? And there's a vampiric element to that, and it applies in the reverse to a woman to a man. But obviously, I can't speak on that. But I can speak on as a man to a woman, and there are some, they have a certain thing about it, like it can put you in a frenzy, literally can put you in a frenzy, right? But then there's some smelling like trout down there. We're not talking about the stank ones, right? The ones that don't wash their ass, because there's some that's toxic, just like some dudes that ain't cleaning down there, right? That could be a harsh wake-up call for a female. We talking about the ones that their shit is fire. It's fire, right? That stuff is true, but it's you got to experience it. And I know a lot of you have, and a lot of you haven't, but you need to experience it to really understand it. All right. It can literally put you in a frenzy. It's just something that activates a certain energy within you that it's hard to describe. And that's why you might have a strong attraction to someone and not as strong as attracting to another opposing person, because they don't have that same energy, right? And that's what makes attraction strong. It's the energy. And then it's not just the energy. Then when you break down it, well, what aspects of the energy of that person makes it attractive? It could be the sexual energy part. It could be their personality. It could be the scent of their body. It could be their certain manner. It's all of these things tie in. These things are all connected, because the smell sense it's a strange one, because we might just think of things we could physically smell, but it also activates certain emotion and spiritual centers that are connected to it. That's why I'm saying that. So it's not just the art of the actual act of smell, and I'm trying to explain this the best way I can. It activates it triggers other senses, right? And that's why it's so powerful, because it's like an activator to other senses, right? All right, let me finish that last part. If you manage to awaken this sense of taste and fully enjoy the experience, you were able to taste all. We did that part. Well, that's pretty much it. The rest is just kind of, there's a couple two more lines there. But that's basically the gist of Claire Gustins, or Claire Gustins. And each one, if you have the book, it has a little meditation you can do to work on it afterwards. I mean, you could do that in your own time. I'm just going through the senses. We have 2 more to go through, and then I'll go to the chat, take your questions. All right. 5th one here, clairtingency is also known as clear touching. This is basically psychometry. This form of extrasensory perception corresponds to the physical sense of touch and the magical work. This ability makes the visual experience tangible. Subtle impulses and vibrations of energy are translated through the sense of touch. I'm not going to read the whole thing. So some people have the ability to touch objects. They can connect with things that, like, it could be shit. It could be somewhere you sit. It could be an object. It could be a place. You're able to pick up on vibrational energy, right, through the sense of touch, right? And that's basically what psychometry is. And some people have that's ability. Some have more than others. Some people can take your hand, right, and they can touch your hand, and they can get a good feel or read of or feel of your hand. Some people can walk into a room and touch certain things in the room, right? And they can kind of pick up on the vibrations of what took place in that room. And this is why you might see sometimes in movie or the news or in some of these paranormal shows, in certain cases, they'll bring in a psychic, right, to come in and help with the investigation, right? They'll tell you that shit is bullshit on the surface, but when they want to solve a murder, they'll bring in, so it's psychometry is the ability through the sense of touch to pick up vibrational frequency on things, which we utilize that. Now, I'll be honest with you. This is one I probably don't use a lot, not for any particular reason. Now, I'm big on the act of touching, like working with crystals and stones. I'm big on picking up the vibrational frequency through touch on objects like that. But yeah, I mean, you could definitely pick it up touching somebody's hand. It can be picked up person to person. Some people can pick it up by touching the top of your head. Be careful though when you do that. I don't let anybody just touch the top of my head. That's your crown chakra. That's where entities can enter and exit. And be careful when people are doing that, because you don't know what they're doing when they're touching your head. Why do you think in all religions they cover the mole, the crown here? Did you ever ask yourself that? Why do Muslims wear kufi? Why do the Jews wear the yarmulke? Why did women in ancient times always cover their head? They did that because they were protecting their crown. They knew that was the most sensitive part of their being, and that was always to be covered and protected. Even in the Catholic Church, the popes and the cardinals, they wear basically what looks like a yarmulke. They're covering that crown, right? And be careful, because that they know too. They ain't gonna tell you that because they practice the occult sciences, but they do it in secret. They're protecting their crown, right? They know that's the most sensitive part of their body, so be cautious of that, all right? And then the last one, what they call the 6th sense, the dragon sense. We're going to finish with this. In order to adjust yourself to the dragon or draconian current, It is not enough to awaken and activate the fire dragon senses, but also combine them with what is usually known as the sixth sense, which is feeling within the whole body. So essentially, this is all the senses coming together as one. It's one whole sense, which creates, as I'm going to read, a whole awakening. It's like, look at it this way: touch, taste, hear, and feel really are all one sense, if you think about it. That's why I was saying with the sense of smell, it activates other senses. Because if you touch something, say a piece of food, it can also activate the smell of it. The touch of it can also activate the taste of the food when you touch it. I'm trying to show you how mental these things are all activated and connected. Well, I'm using that example to understand how you activate the sixth sense, where this all becomes as one, right? It's what Christ said in the Bible too. He said, when the body becomes full of light, the eye becomes one. What he was talking about was the opening or the awakening of the pineal. So what this is saying is the same thing. When all these senses become activated and work as one unit, your consciousness is open to receive spiritual intellect or light, right? When the body is full of light, the eye becomes one, this eye. So this is what decalcifies. I basically just explained to you part of the process of decalcifying your pineal gland, if you were paying attention, okay? And activating, why I say this is part of the process, because when you go into the operations of alchemy, the 7 steps of alchemy is the actual step-by-step process, but this is aspects that are part of this process, right? So the senses, they become highly developed that allow for access to the higher guidance and information from other planes and dimensions. Excuse me. The first step in this work is to awaken your psychic senses, but once they are activated, you need to learn how to use them in magical operations. Otherwise, you will be receiving random transmissions from the other side, meaning it won't be making sense, which is often more disturbing or even terrifying than encouraging to further practice. This work enhances your intuition and empathy and opens your mind for the experience of the world that exists beyond the understanding of the physical senses. It is not uncommon to experience spontaneous precognition then, as well as insights into the past or future, to feel what your close ones feel at a particular moment, right? Sometimes you can feel the pain of loved ones that could live miles away from you in another state, on the other side of the world. To perceive spirits and entities appearing around you unexpectedly, to have prophetic visions and dreams and so on. You may think now this does not sound bad at all, but when you develop your intuition enough to experience all these phenomena, you will quickly learn that this ability is a two-edged sword. Spontaneous visions and transmissions from the world of spirits may come when you are at work. Random. It doesn't just come when you want it to come. This will happen to me when I'm sitting up on the couch. Here's my worst one. This happens periodically, once in a while. I'll be waking up at middle of the night, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I have to go to my altar because there's some type of message or communication there. Something's going on. So it's not, see, the good thing is when you do it willingly, you have the experiences. That's all fun and dandy. But be waking up out of your bed at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning when you got to be up for work at 6 o'clock, and you're at your altar because they pulling you there because there's some shit you got to deal with, right? That's the two-edged sword it's talking about here. So, it's that old adage, be careful what you wish for. And it happens a lot. It could be at work. It happens to me. I'm just driving my car. Could be just headed home to and fro from work or just out and about running errands, and all of a sudden, boom, I get a vision of my mother connecting to loved ones is one that randomly happens. Like my mother just likes to, for whatever reason, when I'm driving, I can hear and feel her now. When I'm driving, listening to music, that's when she loves to come because she loved music. So if I'm playing certain music, because I love music, I could just be driving. And it's like she knows I'm going to be driving for a little bit. Here she comes. She want to have a conversation. And it's just like, it's your mom. What are you going to do? Right? I'm just as close with my mom now when she was, when she was physically here than when she's not. She's not, now she's quote unquote in spirit, as they say. Right? So it's a two-edged sword. Right? It's a responsibility. And that one being pulled out of bed late and you got to be at work in 2-3 hours. Why do you think you see me yawning like this sometimes? When I literally tell you, sometimes I'm going on 2-3 hours sleep, which is not good. Right? And I try to reverse the process and try to catch up on that because sleep is important. Because sleep deprivation can create problems. And I'm conscious of that. I'm aware of that. But sometimes that's just some of the burden and responsibility of working with the spirit world. It just, they don't operate on your time. They don't give a fuck. They don't care that you got to be at work in 2-3 hours, right? To them, that means absolutely nothing to them. They couldn't care if it was 11 o'clock in the morning or if it was 3 o'clock in the morning. They don't care. If something needs to be done, it needs to be done. I told you years ago, when this first started happening years ago, I didn't want it. I'm going to be honest with you. I got up one day and made the conscious decision, like, I'm just going to go be an ordinary motherfucker, live in the world like everybody else. I don't want to deal with this shit. It was like, no way, Junior. That's not how this works. And I didn't have a choice. I didn't have a choice in the sense that you had a choice to do whatever you wanted, but they were making it known, you turn and go the other way, your life is not going to be easy. So I had the choice to go do what I wanted, but I could either take the hard path or the even more difficult, almost impossible path. Well, I took the hard path. I'm not going to lie. At first, I didn't want to bother with none of this shit. I'm not going to lie to you. Because I was young and dumb. I'm in my early 20s, mid 20s, right? And I'm just like, I want to be like everybody else. Look, I'm seeing everybody else today. I want to do what they're doing. I want to have fun doing what they do. Man, I want to experience this. I still did my shit, though, you know. We just didn't, at the time, didn't know how to harness or have the balance and the harmony to activate your spiritual powers and then also harmonize that out with your mundane life. That's the challenge. Because what we do is different. We don't just turn it on and off like a radio, right? We have to learn to deal with this on a daily basis. All right. So it's a two-edged sword. So it can happen while you're at work, surrounded by people that require you to act in a grounded and rational way. Empathy can make you sick or depressed when a close person is suffering from a disease or crisis. Prophetic dreams that come true soon after can upset you in a lot of ways. This happens to me. I think I mentioned this to you guys. You're going to laugh. Like, as I've evolved on my spiritual path, a lot of this happens now, especially if I see the commercial for St. Jude. Like, one thing that bothers me is watching small children suffer from chronic illness or disease. I cry like a little kid. I mean, it always used to bother me, but now it's at a level like I can't contain myself. That's the spirit coming through. And I've literally like sat here or had people over, a family over, their commercial comes on. I gotta, like it said, you gotta adjust because it can come in the moment. And that spirit, that energy overcomes me in the moment. One thing, and it's not just because I have 2 kids. I used to feel like this before I had kids. So I've always had that sensitivity towards small, well, children in general suffering is a travesty. But when I see that commercial comes on, it comes on all the time, late at night, a lot of times, that shit gets to me. Man, how many times I see it? You become more sensitive to things in like it's described in here, right? You can get sick, depressed, like you said, a close person suffering to you. Maybe you didn't get emotional in the past. You do now. It doesn't make you a weak person. Doesn't make that there's something wrong with you. It's just you're more in attunement with who and what you are. It's not that fake, emotional shit with that. It's not that act that people put on, right? Prophetic dreams that come true can often upset you in a lot of ways, especially if these are nightmares that concern people and situations in your day-to-day life. I've seen that. Sometimes you saw somebody going out, but you just couldn't say anything because it was their time, right? Or they did something that was bringing this on. And that's the worst thing, to have a prophetic vision like that. And it's not, I don't want to say that there's nothing you can do about it. You're supposed to let what's supposed to happen happen. What do I mean by that? It's like when you have all these animal lovers in the world. You can't alter the natural process of things. I want to be clear on this. Let's look at animals, okay? People look at a lot of these animal organizations, save the animals from being extinct, that animal's going extinct. Do you realize you're actually going against the natural ecology of things? When you're an animal that's supposed to be extinct, it has run its existence out. The creator, if you want to look at it from the perspective of the creator or God or nature, the creator put that animal there for a certain span of time or to live for a certain cycle or period. When that's run its course, that's the natural cycle of nature. Don't look at some of these scientists and heroes, well, the bald eagle is going extinct because it's ran its course. By you trying to keep an animal that's supposed to naturally, according to the natural cycles of nature, go extinct, you are altering the ecological system of nature and creation. People don't look at it like that. Well, sometimes that's how you have to look at transition and transformation, because sometimes you can't, that process has to happen, even when that refers to physical human beings. That's my point. That's why I use the animal analogy, okay? So sometimes trying to alter that or change that, that's not necessarily the answer, right? Or sometimes that's not necessarily the solution. So sometimes when you have something prophetic like that, if that's the term you want to use, or you see something like that, that's what it meant up there, where it says sometimes that's the disturbing part, where you have to know that, but you have to keep it, what they say, in the bony chest or the bony cage. And that's the responsibility that sometimes comes along with that. Okay. All right, let's continue. It is like a transmission through the television or radio. We receive what we want only if we tune into a particular frequency. Otherwise, we are flooded by a rapid flow of information, random and often unwanted. In this case, we are speaking of spiritual tuning, adjusting your mind and the world beyond the sensory perception, in which the proper desire, focus, and intent should never be underestimated. On the other hand, the experience of the other side is irrational and beyond the understanding of the intellect. If you are a rational person who values logics and likes to have everything under control, you will have to learn completely new ways of thinking before you can activate your psychic senses and develop extrasensory perception, or ESP. Otherwise, you will either experience nothing or you will expose yourself to unpleasant trauma. Now, real quick, go back to something I said in the beginning. Why? Because people don't get the basics down before they start messing with a lot of this stuff. Okay, remember what we talked about in the very beginning, before I get to this very last paragraph. Remember what we talked about in the very beginning. People don't want to take the time to get the basics down, the foundational work. Okay? You can't go from point A to Z and not do anything in between, right? It's like an athlete that plays any sport. I don't know if it's baseball. You got to learn to throw and catch the ball first before you can do anything, right? Basketball, you got to learn to shoot. You got to learn to dribble, right? Those are the basics. I mean, just anything you could apply that to. People sometimes want to bypass that and they just want to go into the intense stuff, and it doesn't work. It is often best to leave the magical senses to develop naturally, in time and with systematic practice. However, if you would like to enhance your psychic powers, there's exercises here. Anyway, that pretty much is it. Just gets into some of the exercises here. And again, as I said before, there are meditations to work with. If you're going to say you want to work on some of those senses, each one, if you have the book, there's a meditation you can practice for each one that can help strengthen those senses, for lack of a better word. But obviously you would have to go deeper than that. That's just like introductory. But you get the point. All right, so I'm going to go to the top. We're going to go through the chat. And let me see what reasonable question and comments we have. All right, so I'm going to the top to be fair. It's only fair for those that were here since the beginning. Now, if you want your question answered first, there is super chat. You can send a super chat that goes right to the top. Super chats are always answered first. But other than that, if there's no super chats, I'm just going to go right in order. All right. Let's see what else we can see. We got here questions. Yeah, and that's something I went into the, I'm not sure if Wrath 636 is still here, but yeah, I went through that, those teachings of triple stage darkness. I did a YouTube video on here, the teaching of the 120, right? And it's really the 3 stages of creation, right? They just don't ever go into it. Earthly creation, spiritual creation, and ethereal creation. I broke it all down into 3. They don't really talk on it, because a lot of those degrees were not given. They were given because, as you know, you got the 120, you got the add-on degrees, but there's a lot of different. Shit, you can go on Scribd. You can pull up the 120s in a PDF. But some people question the wording of some of them, and some of the teachings were kind of, in certain people's opinions over the years, were extracted, changed around. But yeah, they never expounded. They always mentioned triple stage darkness, that Allah or God existed in triple stage darkness, but never breaking down those 3 stages. And that's what I was alluding to earlier. And you're not going to get those teachings. If anybody goes into the Nation of Gods and Earths today, you'll get the 120, but you won't get the breakdown of that most of the part, because majority of them don't know. That's just going to keep it real. And that's not a disrespect, because that was one of my first introductions to spiritual consciousness years back in high school. So I have the utmost respect for the Nation of Gods and Earths. And I don't say that with disrespect. And even when I've done videos and classes on the 120 from an occult perspective, I always make that disclaimer in the beginning. This is my breakdown. This is not, I'm not speaking for any active member in the Nation of Gods and Earths, because I respect them. I don't necessarily agree with their perception today of the 120, but that's okay. I'm good friends with a lot of them to this day still. We don't always see eye to eye on everything, but we build. And they understand certain aspects that I'm coming from. I do still understand certain. There's a lot of things I still do agree with. Like, I don't believe in no Yakub in the backyard with 2 magnets, like and unlike and all that shit. That's more metaphorical than anything. There's no record of any Yakub in Arabia, right? You can't find any of those things. And I think that's some things they struggle with. So if you're going to talk about the historicity of some of the degrees and the actuality of them, that's where they'll probably get stuck. So that's why I did the whole breakdown of the 120 from an occult perspective. Because even when you look at Father Allah, when you look at even the supreme alphabets and the supreme mathematics, that right there is a cult. And I do believe Clarence, what you want to say, Clarence 37X when he was in NOI, Clarence 13X, aka Clarence Jowett Smith, aka Father Puddin, Father Allah, whatever you want to refer to him, I do believe he was connected to something divine, because it's amazing how, even when you do your daily math, like what's today's math, and you break down the numbers using the alphabet of supreme mathematics, that's a language, right? And that was, when you look at it, and if you're looking at it from the perspective of where we're at now in the journey, it was pretty amazing with what he did with those degrees, right? But can you cipher through some of the stuff that might be outdated? Like one argument I always get into, well, not an argument, but a discussion or a debate, where they say the circumference of the planet is 24,896 miles, right? Well, the Earth is constantly contracting and expanding, so it never stays that, right? So that would be scientifically and mathematically incorrect. Or the other part of the lessons degrees where it says the amount of original people that inhabit the planet Earth. Well, that's constantly changing, because people are constantly being born and die. So I'm okay if you say that, well, that's just a rough estimate at that time when them degrees were conferred. So that's where a lot of them struggle with, even the NOI, because you got to remember those degrees were written at a certain time, a certain year, a certain period. So even when you look at the solar facts and all of those things, are those completely accurate? They were accurate at that time, right? But those are constantly changing and fluctuating, because that's just the natural nature and cycle of things, right? So, but look, I constantly, I'm always back and forth in my 120, because I always see what I get out of it now, knowing what I know now. And look, I'm not going to lie, and I say it silently to keep those names protected. I have a lot of gods that'll build with me on the side and don't want other gods to know, because they might get attacked for it, right? Like, oh, you're into that occult devil stuff and this and that. So, but it's cool. You know what I mean? But look, it is what it is. But even when you look at the flag, the universal flag, when you look at the 7, when you look at the 7-pointed star, when you look at the breakdown of the flag, that's all occult knowledge. When you look at what a 5% teaches God is, that's very Luciferian in nature. They don't worship a spook God. They believe that Allah is a true and living man, right? They don't believe in a spook God, right? They don't believe in a sky daddy. Isn't that very occult and Luciferian in nature? And I always joke with some of the brothers I told. I say, you guys are Luciferians and you just don't even know. Oh, no. Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are, because one of your principles, you believe that you are God. And the path of a Luciferian, or the path of an occultist, or a left-hand path practitioner, or the path to self-mastery is that concept too. So they're really not much different from what we talk about on the occult left-hand path. So I still go into my 120 to this day, but I look at it now from a more esoterical and occult breakdown. I mean, I've had so many cipher builds with gods over the years on the degrees, and and standing in them ciphers and imparting different perspectives. And they look at you like, because that's what a God's supposed to do, add on. What are you adding on to the degrees and the lessons? Not just regurgitating, the 1 to 10, the lost and found. Like we could all do today's math. We could take the month, the date, get the supreme alphabet, the supreme math, and on it. What's today's math, God? What are you adding on? Right. So if we're supposed to add on to the degrees, we have to have an open mind, right? You may not agree with it, but a true and living God is going to add on to the degrees. So as a God, what am I adding on to the degrees? If I'm just regurgitating them and they're not changing, they're not evolving, they're not growing, then I'm not God, because God is constantly changing, growing, and evolving. So if it's just a bunch of old heads standing around regurgitating the same old lessons, word verbatim, word for word, then to me, that's not really building and being God, right? Some of the gods, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. What else we got? Jose Munoz says, someone said that Christianity is actually the one world religion that the Bible warns against. I think the Gospel of Judas says, yes, some of the lost books do tell you that, and they won't accept the Gospel of Judas. They won't accept the Book of Enoch. They won't accept the Gospels of Barnabas. Some of the books that were found in the Dead Sea Scrolls in the Qumran caves that they uncovered in 1947, they found them. And they almost shit their pants because it's not in alignment with mainstream monotheism teaches. So their job was to suppress that. I mean, going back before, I think I gave the wrong date on the Qumran caves. Let me correct that. Is it 19? Say it. Let me get the exact year. I don't want to give misinformation. I think I gave you the wrong year. Hold on. What year? Oh, I was right. Between 1940 occurring and 47. Okay, so I was correct. In the caves near Qumran, right? And you could pull up, and they found things that were in opposition to a lot of the church teaching. There was nothing in there about the Trinity. They found books where they clearly stated that Jesus was a prophet and messenger. He was the final. He was the forerunner or comer of the final and lasting seal of the prophets. Right? Never referred to him as this triune God that Catholicism propagated, and then other sects of Christianity picked up on too. So they had to suppress that, because here they spent all their time teaching about this so-called triune God, and even the stories of the crucifixion. Their eyes came out of their head when they found out the accounts of the crucifixion, a lot of things. So it was suppressed. Like the Dead Sea Scrolls was one of the key things they had to make sure did not get out completely to the public. So now when you bring any of these so-called lost books of the Bible up, you're considered pseudo, or that's not facts. I love when they say this. Well, scholars don't agree that that's legit. Well, who the fuck gave these scholars the pass of legitimacy? What makes a scholar legit? Because it meets up to your criteria and your standards. So it's easy just to say, well, this is the criterion standard of all scholars, because it doesn't align with all these scholars who created this criterion standard. That necessarily doesn't make that information false. So just something to think about. Yes, Wrath 636 says, inside of your body is darkness, which is the which is the heart, that many other organs operate in harmony, 100%. So again, back to what we were talking about in the beginning, we got to get out of this, not us here, or not you guys here who are aware. I'm just speaking in general to those that may not be on this path watching, or those that might watch the recording of this video later. Get out of that spookified mindset that darkness is evil. It's crazy. Led Betty said, I guess he's talking about Jew. He was a Jew, Jesus, I mean. Well, according to Christian theology, but the mistake then again here is the word Jew. There's no such word as Jew, right? The word Jew is short for Judah, which comes from the name of one of the tribes, Yahudah, which is the tribe of Judah. So he was a Yahudi, right? Of course, they're going to teach that because he was a Hebrew prophet, right? But when we're using words again like Jew, these are terms that come afterwards because these were the people that converted to something they created later called Judaism and called themselves Jews. These are your Ashkenazim, your Sephardim Jews. These are your stock of Jews who were from Russia, Germany, Poland. So when we're using the term Jew, it's also tying us into a language that is a dialect of what we call in Hebrew, which is called Yiddish. So your more modern Jew, not your ancient Hebrew Israelite or ancient Jew, a lot of your converts or your more modern Jews who grafted onto the religion later speak today, like most of your Jews in Israel today, your Hasidic Jews, they don't speak Hebrew, they speak Yiddish. And what is Yiddish? If you go look up Yiddish, Yiddish has German in it, it has aspects of Russian and Hebrew. It is basically a poor dialect of what we're calling Aramaic or the classic Hebrew. So this is what I'm saying. We have to be careful when we say terms like Jesus was a Jewish prophet. He was a Jew. Yeah, well, you'd be saying that from modern day monotheistic theology. Yes, according to that, yes. All right, what else you got here? The Christians teach that humans are made in the image of God. Isn't that supposed to be like we know right and wrong, or that we are conscious beings, or that we are created beings? I'm not sure if you're still here. Well, part of what you're saying is connected to the fact, yes, because we have the very essence of God within us. That's really what it's trying to say. So all of that is including that, having the ability to exercise your will, knowing right from wrong, being conscious and aware. If God breathed into every living being the breath of life and they became living souls, so you have that God-like ability within you and you have the ability to activate, which is everything we're talking about tonight. So yes, it's that and then some, 100%. All right. What else we got? Wrath 636 says, everything that starts from darkness without a title or label just being darkness. Right. It just is. Existence just is. And that's why I say God doesn't have a name. He just is, or it just is. Because then some people say, well, how do we know God's male, female? I want to open that can of worms right now. Right. But God would just exist. Stop putting a name on it, right? Like the emerald tablets that the Houthis say, by naming God, you create other gods. Think about that for a minute. That goes over a lot of people's head when they read the emerald tablets. What he was saying was you take away from that whole omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient aspect of what the nature of God is, because that reflects and resonates in all of us. When you see me, you see God. And the same thing when Thoth or Tahuti was teaching the students in the temple, they always were asking these mundane mortal questions. When he would say, you have the ability to go to descend and work through the above and below. How can we do that if we're mortals? They always responded back with some mortal shit. What he was trying to get them to see, stop embracing wholly just the aspect of your mortal nature and understand your divine or God-like nature that resides within you too. He was trying to get them to see that, right? So sometimes when you're listening to that conversation that Tahuti's having with the students in the temple, it's almost like reliving the conversations Jesus would have with the disciples, or that the conversations and exchange he would have with the Pharisees, because he was trying to get them to see things from a more divine perspective, not from that mortal, weak mindset, right? What else we got? So Led Betty says, how would one even call on God then? If we can't say his name and he won't listen to us, call him. That's a great question. Call the name or his name, then what's the point in praying? He wouldn't even listen, right? Not sure if you stood here, but yeah, you kind of answered your questions with your questions from that perspective of religion. Yes. If that is your goal, if you believe in that ideology and that faith, you're wrong, because everything you just said would apply. But if you're thinking outside the paradigm of faith and belief in religion, we're not even worried about that, because that's not our goal and perspective, because we're not trying to pray to something outside of ourselves. The difference is they're trying to pray to something outside of ourselves. We're trying to activate something that's naturally within us. So it's different. But from the way you describe it, if you're coming from a person who, I'm not saying you, but I'm saying if you're applying it to a person who per se is in that mindset of faith, belief, and religion, then yes, they're all wrong. Yes, if you go to pray the way they teach you to pray, nobody's listening. You can't call upon his name because men created titles and attributes because they don't even know the name. The ancient Jews will tell you they don't know the name, so they came up. Some of the ancient Jews referred to him as Hashem, which means the name, because they're not even sure what his real name is. So to play it safe, they say, and these are the Hasidic Jews, they'll say we refer to him as Hashem, the name. So yes, if you're coming from that mindset, looking at God through the lenses and eyes of monotheism, then yes, that applies, everything you just said. But to us, no. I look at God resides within. So to call upon God and activate the power of God, I got to go within and do everything we talked about tonight, activating these spiritual and magical powers, because I don't believe in that ideology. I don't believe in their mythological stories of heaven and hell. I don't believe in their judgment. So I can't be bound to it and judged in accordance with it because I don't accept it. You fall in that paradigm. If you embrace it, you accept it, then yes, you have to fall into that spectrum of things. But that's a very good question. And it shows you're paying attention and you're listening. That's an excellent question, right? Raf 636 says, manipulation and indoctrination at a very young age. Yes, it all starts. It starts when you shit. Here's where it starts for most of us. Pretty much all of us here in the West. At some age, and I've talked about this, and I mentioned this before in the past, at some point, somebody sat down and introduced God to you, whether that was one of your parents, an uncle, an auntie, a teacher, a priest, a pastor, right? They say children develop an imagination and they start to develop their intellect at around 7 years old. Well, at some point, somebody sat down when they felt you were conscious and aware enough and you received your first introduction to God, whether that was your first time at church, that was the moment the indoctrination started, because they say God is this or God is that. And then the programming started from there, right? We all had that moment. Some of us might remember exactly when it was. Some of us may not have an exact recollection what it was, but we all had that moment. So once you were aware and you had that moment where they introduced who and what God was to you, that's when the indoctrination process began for most of us. Okay. Alternative peace and prosperity. I appreciate that. Rat 636. Oh no, you're saying that to Ultranstic. Okay, cool. So you guys back and forth. Skip that. Well, the phonetics of the word there. People say Christian comes from Grecian. Well, phonetically, the words sound the same. There could be some connection. I don't know offhand, so I'm not going to pretend I do. But like they said, there's no such things as coincidence. Yeah, those Matthew verses get them fucked up. Even the one the Beatitudes in Matthew 5. We used to kill them back in the day as Muslims, we would say. But didn't Jesus say, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God"? And as I told you guys before, don't let Arabs fool you and tell you that the word Muslim means one who surrenders or submits. That's not what it means. All you got to do is go Google the Arabic word for surrender, and it's not Muslim or salam. The word salam means one. The word in Arabic is one. And then the second part of that word is salam, peace. When you are saying Muslim, you're saying one of peace. Don't let them fool you. Why for years do people who convert to Sunni mainstream Islam are told by Arabs that the word Muslim means one who surrenders or submits to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That is not true. Anybody with the basic understanding of the Arabic language will tear that apart. I used to debate with them all the time years ago. Why are you telling me the word Muslim means one who surrenders or submits? That's your personal definition of what a Muslim is. But if you're going to break down the actual word in the language itself, Muslim, it means one of peace. Did Jesus not say in the Beatitudes in Matthew chapter 5, blessed are the peacemakers? He didn't say blessed are the Christians. He didn't say blessed were the Jews or the Hebrews. He didn't refer to any religion, right? He said, if you translate it into Arabic, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Okay? So they don't even understand their own books. Okay? What else we got? All right. I see. I know you guys left some comments. I'm kind of going to get to the questions unless I feel a comment really important. Guys left a lot of comments about when we're going through the different senses, the responsibility, the challenges. It's not easy work. All of this is 100% correct. The responsibility factor, the accountability factor. Yeah. It's do your due diligence. Don't find things out the hard way, especially when you have the ability to prevent. See, one thing I'm starting to notice over the years, a lot of people's bullshit and problems, more than 50 to 70% of it, that's me just making up my own mathematical equation or more, is self-inflicted. A lot of people create bullshit for themselves because a lot of their problems are self-inflicted. They just do stupid shit. So yeah. Route 632 say everything starts within the darkness inside, 100%. Brown work. What else we got here? I see all trains stick wrong early. I only began to understand that recently. My kids made me realize this. That might have been what I was talking about earlier. Birth of the kids, the ancient ones, and how some kids are put here for godlike reasons, and some kids here are just put here for chaotic and monstrous reasons, right? And shit, we all look at sometimes that family member. It could be your son, your daughter, a brother, a sister, or a bloodline cousin. You go, man, I don't know who that motherfucker's related to, because you can't really affiliate with him with anything that the family is about for the most part. That's how you know, right? When you see that unusual motherfucker just out of pocket, out of character all the time, you just be like, man, I don't know who that motherfucker's related to, right? Fucking BS, clear the lands anew. AKA Morning Star says wars, conflicts, and chaos, it's all distraction. What is really going on behind the scenes, that is a move that's moving and pushing for a power structure, 100,000%. That's why everything going on in the world, people are so engulfed. Man, I don't know what people are going to do when Donald Trump is gone, man. Because, man, people love using Donald Trump as a scapegoat for everything. I'm not saying that. I don't agree with everything the man does. He's not. I'm not sitting there saying everything he does is correct, but some motherfuckers, they just anything goes wrong, they just blame it on Trump. It's Trump. See, what they're doing now is to stir your emotions. Now they're all up in arms about this out there in the Alligator Alley there, the Alligator Alcatraz and the Everglades. Oh man, they created it's a prison for Mexicans and Latinos. They're not telling you the truth. That's not true. There's terrorists there. There's Arabs there. There's any criminals there that have violated or not supposed to be in this country, but they're trying to paint these pictures for you. Another distraction to stir up race. The big thing they use now and been using hard in the last 10 years. I mean, they've been using it forever, but they've upstepped their game. That race card feeds off of people's emotions. So they got to use the race card. They got to use the political game. They got to use war. They got to use death, destruction. They got to use sickness, illness. They got to use any of these conspiracy theories to keep you distracted. 100%. Blade of Astra has been getting bad headaches all summer. Yes, that could be one of the effects of the process of transformation and change and the Kundalini activation, all those things. Excuse me. That we're talking about. Usually here's a good sign, and I've had the experience this in the past. Sometimes you're going through a lot of these physical ailments and you go to a doctor and you get every test in the book, blood test, x-ray, CT scan, ultrasound, whatever. They say, man, we can't find anything. So once you rule out all the physical things, and when it happens like that, when they can't find anything like that, you're going through something spiritual. That's how you know. All right. Let's see what else we got. I'll have to wrap this up soon. I got to get off here. See if I can get to most of the questions if I have time. Yeah, same thing me with Catholicism, Blade of Astar. I didn't like much of the religious content and teachings, but the ritual of the Mass, I was always intrigued with. I always loved the smell of the frankincense and myrrh incense. I couldn't wait to go to church just to smell the incense as a kid. I'm not even joking. just the ritual aspect of it, how everything was very ceremonial and ritualistic. That always drew me in, and that was my main thing that I was always drawn to. But yes, I mean the teachings and all that shit, and yeah, it wasn't too much into any of that. But when you look at it now, I go back and I read the Catechism of the Catholic Church. I look at like the exposition of the Blessed Sacrament. I talk about this all the time. And for those that don't know what the exposition of the Blessed Sacrament is, basically the worship of the sun god Ra. But they ain't gonna tell you that because they have this monstrance. If you're a Catholic, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not, let me shed some information on you. Most churches have this thing in their chapel where they have something called that they do on a daily basis, or maybe they do it certain days of the week. They have something called the exposition of the Blessed Sacrament. And basically what that is, it's this monstrous relic. It looks like a sun with golden rays. And in the center of it, they put a communion wafer, or what they call the Eucharist. And that's supposed to represent Christ. But I find it very odd that we have the SON Son of God in the center of the the SUN sun that shines in the sky. Literally what they're telling you, they're making that connection with the sun god, the SUN sun, and the SON sun. And it looks monstrous. It looks like a sun with rays radiating. Those that know. If you don't understand what I'm saying, go look it up. And then when they lay the Blessed Sacrament out, they have this opening ritual or thing they do in the beginning. They have these opening prayers. The priest comes out. He puts on the shawl. The altar boys put the shawl on. He has to cover his hands. You can't touch it with your hands. It's so divine and sacred. They elevate it. They incense it. Tell me this isn't ritual. People are kneeling down, genuflecting, and they're incensing the monstrous, and they're saying these prayers. And then after they do the opening, they set it down, and it stays out pretty much all day. And then people can come all throughout the day in the chapel. They can just come to pray, to meditate. They can recite the rosary, right? It's called the exposition of the Blessed Sacrament. And then when it's done for the day, they have a closing ritual. Same thing. The priest comes out with the altar boys. He's got the shawl on. They come out. They go through these closing prayers. They remove the Eucharist or the communion wafer from the monstrous. They put the communion wafer back into the tabernacle, the Holy of Holies, which is where you see behind the altar at a Catholic church, which is this little gold box with doors they open, and they keep the communion wafers in there. So now they're putting Christ back into the Holy Holies of the tabernacle. And then now they take the monstrous, they close it, the priest picks it up, his hands are covered, and they put it back in his case and they cover it, right? If that's not fucking ritual, I don't know what is. That's a ritual of the sun, the SUN sun, right? Look, I can go on for hours about this shit. There's so many rituals that are rituals in the Catholic Church. The Catholics are occultists. They just don't know it, right? I sometimes just go sit in a Catholic church and meditate because my mother has strong connections with it. So I go there largely in part because of her. But I occasionally just go in there. I love going into the old Orthodox churches. I love those Gothic and old Scouts. Man, there's great energy in there, man. Go in there when there's nobody in there, man. You can feel the power and the energy in there. Tap into it in your own way. Or sometimes just go to a mass and sit in the back and observe. Right? So you could there's something why you hear me use this term sometimes called stealing a mass. So you can go there and steal that energy, right? And reverse what they're trying to do and make it work for you. I mean, that's a ritual in itself. That's what a magician does, a sorcerer. And it's crazy because it's like when I walk in, occasionally when I go and I walk in, certain individuals will feel my presence and they'll turn around and look immediately to the back. It's crazy. That's how I know those are the ones in there. They're not regular people. They're probably in there because they're sorcerers and magicians too, right? The rite of the Catholic Mass is an hour-plus ritual of hymns, frankincense. Yeah, ritual of faith. We just talked about that. 100%. You're right on point with that. Wrath 636 says very informative session. Appreciate that. So true to secret words, magic with itself, the way one perceives it with true intent, the way they speak it in rituals. 100%. All right, what else we got? Wrath 632 says that's one thing about studying this path and the knowledge of the occult. Your eyes will get punished with all the reading. Yes, 100%. And I experienced that. And then in addition, I do a lot for my job. I'm at a desktop. So, in addition to traveling and this, that, and the third. So yes. Yes, smelling, that's another one when we talk about that magical sense of smell. Sometimes smelling the scent of a loved one that has transitioned on, a family member, etc. That always happens. And you, like you just described an example of your just randomly sometimes smelling the perfume of your grandmother. That's their way also of letting you know they're still around, they're still present. That's another aspect of getting communication from the spirits. It's not always a vision. It's not always an image in a long white robe. Hey, you are my son. And that's that. Stop watching movies, people. Stop watching shit on the internet. That's all spookism. Okay? You want to look for God? Just go look in the mirror. You found God. Search is over. Save yourself the headache. Okay? Melanin98 says rub baking soda before shower. It detoxes all the metals they put apart. And okay, I didn't know that. That's a good thing. Yeah, if your ass, you don't wash your ass and you stink, take that. There you go. Maybe some of you got them deep toxins buried underneath the pores of your skin and they just won't come loose. But one thing I also learned, sometimes people that have like fucked up breath, their breath is jacked up, having ulcers or stomach disorders also create like halitosis. Well, halitosis can also be when you have also gum disease. So sometimes people have bad breath because they could have gum disease or they could have stomach disorders, digestive problems, ulcers. That also will create halitosis. Gingivitis is what the gum disease I was talking about. Gingivitis will create bad breath, right? So sometimes, or sometimes just a motherfucker they nasty. They just don't brush their teeth all the time, right? Oh, that's a good question. Route 6, would that be considered a part of sexual alchemy when you can taste on an angel without physical contact? Most definitely. And then when you physically can, the actual physical aspect of it, that is part of sexual alchemical transformation. And that's why they have certain things when it comes to sex magic and this, that, and the third. That's why there's certain bonds that individuals create now that can be very intense, right? So most definitely. Yes, the Pope wears that yarmulke or that yarmulke, right? But remember, they also, like we talked about in the last class, they also wear the cardinals, the popes, and the bishops also wear the mitre, right? That hat that they wear, and it's basically the tail of a fish, and that's their confirming they worship the Canaanite deity El, which is connected also to the Sumerian deity Dagon. Right, and Dagon is the half man, half fish, and he has the lower part of his body is the tail of a fish. So when you look at the mitre, you're looking at the tail of a fish sitting on the Pope, the cardinals, and the bishop's head. So they're telling you outright, and then look at the staff that they hold up close. Look at the staff of the Pope. I told you, look at it up close. When you look at, I'm not talking about the one he holds with the crucifix. There's another one he holds. It looks very similar to the Medical Association of America symbol of the Caduceus or the Caduceus, right? Which is the serpent energy. They're telling you who they are. They worship the serpent people. Their god is Dagon or El, and they're not hiding that fact, okay? And then they're incorporating all the other traditions into it. Like you say, they wear the yarmulke or the yarmulke, right? You can see Judaic elements in some of the things they do. I told you the whole setup is ritualistic, and then they claim the power on the planet because they basically have, well, I'm saying in general, what most of us know is bullshit, but they basically have convinced the whole world that the seat or papacy or the Pope is Christ's vicar representation on earth. That's supposed to be a representation of Christ, because they say that the whole seat of the papacy of the Pope is built on the Apostle Peter. Because they take it back to the Bible where they say, where Christ turned to Peter and said, upon you, Peter, Cephas, I will build my church. On the rock of Peter, the church is built. So this is why they always take the name Peter, Pope, Paul, John, Peter, Paul, Mary, whatever fuck names. They're taking all these crazy names because they'll teach you in Catholicism that the popes trace their lineages back to the Apostle Peter. So they claim their tradition. I mean, they just came out with that claim and convinced the whole world, and then created a country within a country called the Vatican. The Vatican has its own government, its own rules, its own police station, its own economy. It's a world within a world. And they just get away with it. They're the biggest gangsters. That's the mafia. Those are the mobsters, right? They just do whatever the fuck they want. They're an entity within an entity operating, right? That's some gangster shit, right? And that's the Pope is like, hold on, keep quiet. That's why the Pope is like the Godfather. He's the Godfather. He's the head of the mafia or the mobsters, right? They kiss his ring, just like they do in the mob. What do they do when the Pope's sitting in the chair, right? They all come up to the Pope and they kiss the Pope's ring, right? That's the Godfather, right? And it's like a bloodline family. When the Don passes away, what do? They have a conclave. They get together like they just recently did, and they got to elect a new Don, a new mob boss. You were looking at the mafia. That's the mobsters. They're the pimps. They're the gangsters. That's crazy, though. All right, I'm going to skip down. I got to kind of wrap this up. I'm just going to look for some very more questions. Another good comment, though. Oh, Raph, thank you. I appreciate the super chat. I appreciate that. People usually don't have the patience to study. Nothing comes quick. And that's why I've said for years, the hardest school, spiritual school on your journey to master is patience. And I always refer to that story in the Quran when Al-Qidr was traveling with Nebi Musa and Nebi Musa didn't have the patience. That's a great story to exhibit that, right? When you read that story, he says, "Can I travel with you?" He says, "You don't have the ability or the patience to travel." Yeah. I want to come with you. I want to travel. So he sees a village being destroyed, children being drowned, this, that, and the third, and he's making judgment. He didn't understand the kids that were killed were a burden and were horrific kids to their parent. Right? He goes, it's a whole parable. The story of Nebi Musa and Al-Qidr we used to learn in Islam as a teaching tool for patience years ago. Most people don't have the patience on all levels, and not just with others, but with themselves. And that's why I learned years ago from a lot of elders, you're going to find whatever spiritual system you are into or mastering, patience is the hardest school to master, and that's never going to change. So that's a challenge. That's a big one. All right, what else we got? All right, let me skip down here. Simon says, what's a person supposed to do when Belial was causing torment in one's physical health and stops once recognized? What a person supposed to do after a failed attempt at connection and perseverance? And second point, what does one do to bring about? All right, let's do the first part real quick. I mean, I have to do this quick. It's not really a quick answer. You'd have to really explore the dynamics of what took place in a situation like that, the torment, the physical health. And once that's recognized, then you would have to identify a certain approach to addressing that. So there's not a particular answer because each individual that has an experience like that, it's unique and it's different. So it has to be addressed accordingly. So that's just a quick answer for the moment, only because I have to really get off of here. But that's something you can bring up again in a further class. I'm not sure if you're on Patreon or if you come to the classes, you can bring that up again. I could take a little more time to approach it. The same thing with your second part. You have to analyze a person's financial situation, what they've been through, where they're at, what they're struggling with. But change can definitely be brought about, but you got to get the facts and the data first. So once you have that information and say you create a ritual, now your intent is clear. And then how you map that ritual out is going to be based on that data that you gathered. And that's what I mean when you always hear me say in the beginning of videos, ritual work should be designed and created first to address our needs before we all get caught up in addressing the wants, right? Because most people are stuck in addressing all their wants first, right? But you have to address your needs first. I know that was a quick answer, only because I'm pressed for time. Yeah, we used to hear the rappers say, "What's today's mathematics?" Yeah. Mina, if I'm saying this right, Mina Jeet G Miniti. I don't want to butcher that. I'm just going to call you Mina. Just discovered your channel, such a gem. We'll join the Patreon soon. No worries. Appreciate you being here and supporting us on YouTube. Infernal Darkness, Vega Monster. I think I'm at the end here. You hit it on the head, Rat60. Trump is a jackass and a genius. That's the best way. I like that. That's the best way to describe that dude. A jackass and a genius at the same time. And that's what makes him annoy so many people. Man, that's a great way to define him. I'm gonna start using that. You know why people don't like that? He's a jackass and a genius at the same time. Perfect. That would be in a nutshell. And I agree with that. That would be my take on him too, 100%. Let's be real. Some of the things he says and it's trying to implement wouldn't make great sense. He does say some bizarre shit, and maybe the way he expresses certain things just doesn't come off the right way because he's not the most elegant speaker in the world, right? He's very raw, unfiltered, and he comes at you. He's kind of got that old New Yorker vibe, right? That rubs people the wrong way, right? But that's a great way to describe him. All right, first of all, I'm not even going to waste my time. I'm not even going to address the, I don't even know who that is, Norazur Gaming. That's all religious dogma. We addressed all that earlier. I'm not gonna touch on any of that again. Anyway, that's the end. Stayed on here way longer than I wanted to. I got to wrap this up. It was approaching midnight. I got some stuff I need to do. I tried my best to get to most of your questions. I know I had to skip some of the comments. Didn't have time to get to all that. But anyway, for those that's on Patreon, I will see you guys on Friday night at the set ritual. You don't want to miss that. That's going to finish the month of July and the month of Set and the year of the 9. It's going to be some good stuff. I will be posting probably early than I normally do for the month of August. In the next few days, I will start posting the Patreon classes and events for the month of August. All right. Other than that, I appreciate you guys. Appreciate the support. Appreciate you guys tuning into the channel, supporting all the platforms, the YouTube. Don't forget to support to check out the Patreon page, patreon.com/Baniti if you want to take any of the classes. I got a bunch of classes ongoing on there. Constant classes happening regularly. We do 3 classes every month. There's a ton of content on there that's going to keep you busy for a long time. So go to the Patreon page, check it out, patreon.com/Baniti, BANITI. Make sure you subscribe to all the social media platforms. Primordial Chaos 9 on Instagram, all one word. Primordial Chaos, 2 words on Facebook. And primordialchaos.com 3 on TikTok. Make sure you subscribe here to the YouTube channel. And make sure you hit the notification bell. And make sure you check all notifications. So I want to thank you guys that support all the platforms. I'll talk to you guys soon. Infernal blessings, and we are out of here.